Chapter 1741. F***CK. Are you kidding me? Although he was mentally prepared for Wuji, Eternal Dawn still almost hit his head on the wall when he heard Wuji's words. He asked in surprise, "Why do you need so many people? Is it not troublesome enough?" The city wars in Rebirth had more or less been fought a few times. Every main city was very wary of outsiders. Not to mention 7,000 or 8,000 people appearing at the same time. Even 700 or 800 people appearing at the same time would attract the attention of the opposing main city. The difficulty of this mission was already high enough. Bringing so many people on a stroll with such great fanfare, wasn't this just asking for trouble? That's right. Facing Eternal Dawn's doubts, not only did Wuji not refute, but he also said calmly, "It's just that it's not troublesome enough." F***CKU. Eternal Dawn said angrily, "Are you helping us or scamming us?" Meow. Chuanjin could defeat the Son of the Holy Spirit with just a dozen people, and now he needed so many people to defeat the Lord of the Demon Soul. Eternal Dawn began to doubt Wuji's motives. Wuji laughed. "I have no grudge against you, and you even gave us so much money. Why would I scam you?" Eternal Dawn was stunned by Wuji's question. He said dumbfoundedly, "How would I know why you scam me? I have my reasons." Wuji waved his hand. "If you don't believe me, I can't guarantee that we can successfully kill the target this time." T. Young Master Hua said angrily, "You can kill the Son of the Holy Spirit with just a dozen people, but you can't kill the Lord of the Demon Soul? It's not that we can't kill it," Wuji said mysteriously. "It's just that times have changed. What are you pretending for?" Seeing that Wuji still did not forget to act cool, young Master Hua said angrily, "Do you think you have me? At most, I won't do this mission." "Is that so?" Wuji narrowed his eyes and said, "You said it yourself, Boss Wuji." At the end of the day, Eternal Silence was the more mature one. Seeing that Wuji was about to leave, he hurriedly stopped him. "He's still young. Don't lower yourself to his level. You just want him, right? Well, do as you say." "Young Master Chuni, young Master Hua, don't talk." Capital Hua Xiao was just about to say something when Eternal Silence waved his hand to signal for Capital Hua Xiao to shut up. He then solemnly said, "Boss Wuji, our two guilds don't have any bad blood, right?" "No." Wuji shook his head. "Boss Iron Ox and I can be considered friends, right?" Eternal Silence asked. "He has never treated you as an enemy," Wuji replied. "That's good." Eternal Silence sighed and said, "Since we are friends, let's treat the last mission as a competition based on our own abilities. This time, let's be more sincere. If it's still a competition mission, then let's do it for real. Scheming will only affect our brotherhood. If it's not a competition mission, I'm willing to trust you unconditionally. I don't care how much money you offer. Money is not a problem. I just want to help my brother salvage this mission. I know that Chuanjin is also loyal. I hope Boss Wuji won't make things difficult for me." "Boss Eternal Silence, you're too kind." Wuji smiled and waved his hand. "We, Chuanjin, are still very loyal. We will definitely help you this time. As for the money, didn't you already pay? All right, I'll trust you again." Eternal Silence nodded and said, "I'll call people now." "Thank you, Boss Eternal Silence." Wuji smiled and cupped his hands at Eternal Silence. Honestly speaking, Wuji did not dislike Eternal Silence's personality. Although, as a second-generation heir, it was inevitable that he would use money to solve some problems, these second-generation heirs were much more magnanimous than the average person. It cannot be helped. Who asked him to be so confident? He could afford to use money to buy a lesson. If he could not buy a lesson, then he could use it as a test to make friends. One more friend meant one more path and one more network. It might seem like a loss, but in reality, it was a form of wealth. Therefore, generally speaking, Wuji preferred to work with people with straightforward personalities. Eternal Silence's guild was different from normal guilds. Normal guild players were mostly office workers and students. If there was an emergency, it was inevitable that some of them would be absent. Their discipline and obedience were also relatively poor. However, Eternal Dawn subordinates were professional players that Eternal Dawn had hired. Therefore, He had absolute authority in the guild. As soon as he gave the order to gather, it only took a few minutes for his subordinates to gather at the entrance of the church. The scale of Eternal Dawn's guild was quite spectacular. 7,000 to 8,000 people stood on the street, instantly filling up the entire street. The street was filled with people everywhere. Television often talked about armies and horses, but that was just empty words. This was just an army of 1,000, and there was already a sea of people, let alone an army of 10,000. How big of a scene would it take to accommodate so many people? The aura of a mercenary follower was different from that of a mercenary follower. Seeing the street full of players, Chuanjin and the others were secretly speechless. Even though these people's equipment, levels, and even numbers couldn't compare to Blood Alliance, if they really fought, these 7,000 to 8,000 people could easily beat tens of thousands of Blood Alliance players. Discipline was definitely the foundation of a team. Most player teams in the game did not have discipline. My brothers are all here. Eternal Dawn stood at a high place and pointed at the endless crowd of players. Boss Wuji, do you have any other orders? No instructions. Wuji smiled and said, disperse now. Upon hearing Wuji's words, the Eternal Silent Dawn resisted the urge to beat him up and said, Boss Wuji, you're not joking, right? You said to gather everyone, and now that I've gathered them, you're telling us to disperse on the spot? Are you treating us like we're celebrating Sunday? What do you know? Wuji said, of course we need to use people, but it depends on how we use them. If we just go to Dark City like this, we probably won't even be able to enter the city. Then what do you want? Eternal Dawn asked with a frown. You and Hua Xiao will first join our team. Wuji instructed. Okay. Upon receiving Wuji's command, Eternal Silent Dawn and Capital's young master Hua withdrew from the guild's party despite their reluctance. They then sent Wuji a request to join the party. Wuji casually confirmed and pulled the two of them into the team. Then he said, we'll go to Darkness City first, and then everyone else will form teams of 10. We'll stagger from the other main cities. Saying this, Wuji looked at Eternal Dawn and asked, do you understand why we're doing this? Oh, I understand. Eternal Dawn nodded again and again. Darkness City was this big, and there were over 1 million people, so it was impossible for everyone to know each other. Even if Eternal Dawn's 7,000-8,000 subordinates were thrown in, it wouldn't show anything. But 7,000-8,000 people didn't count for much compared to 1 million people, but it wasn't a small number either. It would be very conspicuous if they were grouped together. If they teleported this many people to Darkness City at once, they would definitely be noticed. But if it was like what Wuji said, everyone would split up and enter the city at different times, it would be much more hidden. With Darkness City's large population flow, no one would be able to notice an extra 7,000-8,000 players. Chapter 1742. Don't you think it's not troublesome enough? Why do you have to sneak into the city? Eternal Silent Dawn couldn't help but ask after realizing Wuji's thoughts. Wuji calmly said, because even if it's troublesome, we have to make it useful. As the capital of the Light faction, Holy Light City was very far from the Darkness faction's capital, Darkness City. Just the airship flight time was close to 2 hours. Although Eternal Silent Dawn didn't lack money and shouldn't let Xuanjin's people take the bus with him, Darkness City was the same as Holy Light City. As the capital of the Light faction, in order to prevent enemy forces from invading, there was an energy barrier. Teleportation scrolls would be disrupted by special forces in these two main cities. Eternal Silent Dawn followed Wuji's instructions and gave the order. The group boarded the airship to Darkness City. Half an hour after Wang Yu, Eternal Silent Dawn, and the others took off, Eternal Silent Dawn's subordinates followed Eternal Silent Dawn's instructions and boarded the airship to the main cities of the Darkness faction. After a long flight, Wang Yu, Eternal Silent Dawn, and the others' airship finally landed in Darkness City. Along the way, everyone witnessed the shamelessness of the game company. They said it was a seamless map, but it was actually just to cheat some card money. 2 hours of flight meant 2 hours of card money. Even if everyone went offline to eat lunch, as long as the players didn't land, the card money would still be consumed. This damn Soaring Dragon company. They even calculated this small amount of money. No wonder Boss Ma was one of the richest people in the world. Darkness City, Wang Yu had been here a long time ago. At that time, Wang Yu was only level 20, and now he was almost level 70. Now that he was here, Wang Yu was filled with emotions. As for Chuanjin's people and Eternal Silent Dawn, this was the first time they had come to the Darkness faction's headquarters after playing the game for so long. It was different from a grand sacred light city that was white in color. Darkness City was black in color, and the architecture was heavy and solemn. It gave people a feeling of standing tall without desires from afar. Coming to Darkness City for the first time, even the old dogs of Chuanjin couldn't help sighing, "This is Darkness City. It looks much more comfortable than Sacred Light City." Indeed, this bunch of people with dark hearts were the most compatible with the Dark faction. Eternal Dawn and Eternal Silence felt a little awkward. In Rebirth, although the factions were clearly divided, the players' factions were not very obvious. Even if players were from different factions, as long as they did not interact too deeply, no one would be able to tell that they were from the opposing faction. Usually, the most direct way to distinguish factions was through class, attire, and race. The races were the most obvious. The Orc race was definitely in the Dark faction, while the Heavenly Wings race was definitely in the Light faction. However, this had its limitations. After all, the Heavenly Wings race and the Orc race were races that were open later. The main race in the game was still the human race. In terms of attire, the Light faction's players were usually bright and beautiful. The Dark faction's players focused on their aura, so they were a bit more terrifying. As for the classes, because of the difference in faith, the professions were also completely different. The Light faction's players were called priests and knights, while the Dark faction's players were called witch doctors and punishers. Wang Yu's group were all humans. In terms of attire, the Chuanjin people were all very casual, so it was hard to tell which faction they belonged to. As for the Eternal Silence and Eternal Silence, they were rich second generations, so they paid more attention to their image. They were also players from Sacred Light City, so they were wearing the special Radiant Miracle. Their white clothes and armor made them look like Zhao Zilong. It could only be described as flashy. They were just short of writing, "I am a citizen of the light," on their forehead. This airship attracted the malicious gazes of the Darkness City players. This was the Dark faction's main camp. For the Light faction's dogs to come here, this was clearly slapping the faces of all the Dark faction players. Although the Eternal Silence and Eternal Silence weren't Wang Yu, it was not hard to feel the killing intent of the surrounding players. Being surrounded like this, the two of them subconsciously wanted to pull out their weapons. When Wuji saw this, he quickly came over and said in a low voice, "You guys don't want to live anymore. Quickly change your clothes." Damn, just by looking at the clothes, most people wouldn't dare confirm the target's faction. After all, due to the influence of certain novels, there were many people in the game who pretended to be pigs to eat tigers. If they met someone who came out to stir up trouble, wouldn't they be running into the muzzle of a gun? However, one of these two was a priest and the other was a Templar. The weapons in their hands were a cross and a scepter. These things had class restrictions and couldn't be faked. As long as the Eternal Silence and Eternal Silence dared to take out their weapons, they would most likely die on the spot. After being reminded by Wuji, the two of them quivered. They quickly took off their jackets and changed into low-key clothes. They smiled at the people around them and left the port. After leaving the port, Wuji couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. Alright, these two young masters basically had zero experience doing bad things. They didn't even know how to do something as basic as pretending to be obedient. They almost died before they could succeed. After changing their clothes, the group was no longer so eye-catching. Everyone easily snuck into Darkness City. According to the instructions of the mission, after entering Darkness City, Wang Yu and the others didn't stop at all, directly arriving at the destination indicated by the mission, the Dark Conference. Compared to the last time Wang Yu came, the Dark Conference hadn't changed much. However, the entrance to the Dark Conference was now filled with players. These players had fierce expressions, and one could tell with a glance that they were veterans of hundreds of battles. Furthermore, their equipment was excellent, clearly players from large guilds. Seeing so many people at the entrance of the dark conference, the eternal silence and eternal silence were instantly stunned. They said in surprise, "Damn, why are there so many people?" However, compared to the shock of the eternal silence and dawn, the faces of the Chuanjian people didn't show the slightest bit of surprise. "Nonsense." Wuji curled his lips and said, "Do you think that only your guild would have a mission? It's obvious that these people are the same as you and have received a two-way mission. Otherwise, why do you think I called everyone from your guild here?" Hiss, hearing Wuji's words, eternal silence sucked in a breath of cold air and said, "Don't tell me you want to destroy their guild. Meow, this idea is too bold, right? Although 7 or 8,000 people wasn't a small number, it definitely wasn't a lot. Darkness City had over 1 million players and had the home advantage. Just how bold was this guy to dare provoke the capital with just 7 or 8,000 people? What do you know?" Wuji's face was full of black lines as he said in disdain, "Don't you know how to use military tactics? Fighting is the worst thing to do. Just find a place to wait quietly." "Wait for what?" Eternal silence had a confused expression. Chapter 1743. Of course, this eternal dawn was actually quite smart, but that depended on who he was compared to. In front of Wuji's brain, eternal dawn wasn't good enough and couldn't keep up with Wuji's thoughts. Half an hour later, eternal dawn's subordinates landed in the other main cities near Darkness City. According to the previous agreement, everyone sent a message to eternal dawn as soon as they landed. "Boss, we're here. When are we going over?" Eternal dawn had been surrounded before, so he didn't forget to ask, "You guys weren't targeted by the people from the Darkness faction, right? How is that possible?" Hearing Eternal Dawn's words, the subordinates all laughed. Boss really knows how to joke. "We are professional experts, not some random person. How could we come to the Darkness faction without changing our clothes?" "Fuck." Eternal Dawn saw everyone's messages and rolled his eyes in a depressed manner. Then he asked Wuji, "Boss Wuji, since everyone is here, what will we do now?" Wuji looked around and said, "Have them teleport to Darkness City. Pay attention. Don't appear at the same teleportation point." "Okay." Eternal Dawn didn't even think about it, as he gave the order to his subordinates. Eternal Dawn didn't kill them. Although gathering troops was the most important thing, it would be too eye-catching if 7 to 8,000 people appear at the same time. Although it was a bit troublesome to teleport them separately, it was the safest method. After receiving the order, Eternal Dawn's 7 to 8,000 subordinates appeared near the 8 teleportation points of Darkness City. It was a good thing that there were many players in Darkness City and the flow of people at the teleportation points wasn't small. Otherwise, it would be very eye-catching for thousands of people to appear at each teleportation point in such a short period of time. "What do we do now?" Eternal Dawn asked. "Should we have them gather here?" "Gather?" Wuji revealed a mysterious smile and said, "Everyone disband and scatter around Darkness City. The more scattered, the better." This, hearing Wuji's words, Eternal Dawn was stunned. In the beginning, Wuji's arrangement made sense. Everyone was here to complete a quest, so keeping a low profile wasn't a bad thing. However, Eternal Dawn was puzzled by Wuji's arrangement. Why did he bring so many people to Darkness City? It was all for the sake of completing the mission. After arriving at the destination, the most important thing was to gather everyone as soon as possible. What the F***CK was this about dispersing on the spot? If they didn't gather their forces, wouldn't they be no different from having a dozen people? How would they be able to complete the mission? Could it be that they had to travel thousands of miles to travel here at public expense? Boss Wuji, Eternal Silence pondered for a moment and said, "I don't understand your command. If you don't let everyone gather, how are we supposed to complete the quest? Mission? Hee hee." Wuji grinned and said, "This mission isn't very difficult. A few of us are enough. Then why did you ask my brothers to come here?" Eternal Silence still did not understand what Wuji was up to. "Of course, it's to be our target," Wuji said indifferently. "Target? What do you mean?" Wuji always liked to hide things. The Chuanjian people who were familiar with him already understood Wuji's meaning, but Eternal Silence was getting more and more confused. Wuji speechlessly covered his forehead, then pointed at the Darkness City players at the entrance of the Dark Council and said, "Do you see the guards at the entrance of the Dark Council?" "Yes," Eternal Silence nodded. "I see them. There are thousands of people surrounding the Dark Council. Only a blind man would not be able to see them. How confident are we in breaking in?" Wuji asked again. "Of course it's impossible with just a dozen of us." Eternal Silence glanced at the players in front of him and said, "But if my brothers gather here, these people might not be able to stop us." "Is that so?" Wuji laughed and said, "Then do you think your subordinates will be able to tear an opening for us to enter?" Hearing Wuji's words, Eternal Silence was speechless. Indeed, Eternal Silence's 7,000 to 8,000 players had no problem fighting 10,000 scatter players. But the problem was that this wasn't a fight between two guilds in Holy Light City, but a fight in the enemy's main city. The players in front of them might not be able to stop Eternal Silence's men, but no one was a decoration. It was impossible to break through the encirclement without any effort. 7,000 to 8,000 players was a large target. It would definitely attract the attention of the other players in Darkness City. When 1,000,000 reinforcements arrived, each person would be able to eat up Eternal Silence's men. Eternal Silence still didn't understand why Wuji wanted everyone to disperse, but he knew that his idea wouldn't work. After hesitating for a moment, Eternal Silence gritted his teeth and gave an order in the guild channel. "Everyone, try to disperse in Darkness City. The further the better." Eternal Dawn subordinates had the same thought process as Eternal Dawn. Everyone had already prepared to assemble, but when they suddenly received the order to disperse, they couldn't help but ask in confusion, "Boss, are you kidding me?" "I'm not joking." Eternal Silence said seriously, "Listen to my orders, disperse. As the saying goes, whoever holds the bowl will be the boss's boss." Everyone was doing things for money, so no matter how stupid the boss's decision was, the subordinates had to obey. Seeing that Eternal Silence's order was so serious, everyone was confused, but they didn't dare to ask any further. They followed Eternal Silence's orders and dispersed in Darkness City. After a long time, Eternal Silence received another message. "We have dispersed. Please give your orders." The Eternal Silent Dawn raised his head and looked around after receiving the news. Just as expected, there were only 3 or 4 players from his guild standing sparsely near the Dark Council. They were spread out over a dozen meters apart. "Boss Wuji, my brothers have dispersed." Eternal Silence asked, "What do we do now?" Wuji calmly said, "Change into the most eye-catching equipment in the light faction and turn the special effects to the max. Then everyone can run. Try to use your most powerful skills when you run." Hearing Wuji's order, Eternal Silence understood Wuji's intentions. So this brat was using his subordinates to attract the attention of the Darkness City players. But how could a few thousand people attract the attention of such a large city of players? However, there was no other way. Eternal Silent Dawn could only send Wuji's command into the guild channel with a face full of black lines. Chapter 1744. As mentioned before, the Dark Faction, from a main city to the players, was mainly black. Darkness City was the capital of the Dark Faction, so it was even more black. In this kind of environment, even a little bit of white would be very conspicuous, not to mention a player who had maximized the special effects and skills of his equipment. Under the dazzling holy light, it was a dazzling sight, attracting the gazes of all the players within a dozen meters. Eternal Silent Dawn's 7,000 to 8,000 subordinates lit up at the same time. The scene was like a black hole suddenly lit up with 7,000 to 8,000 incandescent lights, illuminating the eyes of the Darkness City players. Looking around, it was like a scene of thousands of pear trees blooming. Eternal Silent Dawn's subordinates ran all over the city, instantly enveloping the entire Darkness City in white holy light. Eternal Silent Dawn didn't understand why Wuji was so confident in having 7,000 to 8,000 people pinned down the Darkness City players, but now seeing this scene, he immediately understood. F*CK, Wuji actually made use of the difference in color to create the impression of 1,000,000 men and horses from 7 to 8,000 men. As for the Darkness City players, they couldn't help but jump in fright when they saw the white light coming from all directions. Seeing the endless holy light surrounding them, they all turned pale with fright. Damn, this is bad. The light dogs are attacking the city. This sudden encirclement of holy light caught the Darkness City players off guard. In an instant, the Darkness City players fled in all directions, creating a mess. At the same time, the guards at the entrance of the Dark Parliament also saw the Holy Light City players not far away. Their hearts were all shocked, and they all pulled out their weapons to form a formation. Just as the formation was formed, a shout suddenly came from the crowd. "This is bad. There's a traitor." The guards at the entrance of the Dark Parliament were all nervously looking forward, not caring about their backs. At this moment, hearing the shout, their hearts jumped and they quickly turned around. At this moment, they saw Mingjian Daoxue and Baiming Yuyu brandishing their daggers, bringing with them a string of white light as they charged out from the back line of players. They didn't run far before disappearing. Teamwork was first about discipline, and second was the trust between teammates. If they didn't even trust their teammates, who would be their backs? However, this sudden turn of events left the guards dumbfounded, and their trust in their companions plummeted. Everyone hurriedly dispersed. The formation that had been set up instantly collapsed. Everyone split into groups of 3 to 5 and looked at each other. The vigilance and shock in their eyes were obvious. Of course, there was no lack of intelligent leaders among these guards. Seeing that the formation was in chaos, they hurriedly shouted, "Everyone, don't panic. Someone must have caused trouble just now. Everyone, stand properly." The two assassins weren't good at disrupting the morale of the soldiers, and the guards were only caught off guard. With the leader's reminder, everyone came to their senses, and the fear in their hearts was mostly dispelled. Boom! However, just as the players on guard relaxed their guard, a sea of fire rose from the ground with a loud explosion. Suddenly, a white light rose, and the sea of fire took away dozens of people. Ha ha ha! At the same time, an arrogant laughter sounded from the roof. Everyone suddenly looked up and saw an extremely ugly Taoist master in a black robe floating in midair. This person was none other than the great Taoist master of the Quanjin sect, Li Mingdu. Mingdu held a crimson staff in his hand, emitting a dazzling light. At a glance, it looked like a phoenix spreading its wings, and its aura was extremely shocking. This equipment, this attire, this appearance was clearly no different from a player from the Dark faction. Whoosh! The guards, who had let down their guard, were stunned when they saw this, and they dispersed again. Seeing that everyone's gaze was attracted to him, Mingdu shouted proudly, "The Dark City has already been conquered by our people. You idiots are still waiting for death here." After saying that, Mingdu spread his wings and disappeared into the horizon. Bullsh *T. Hearing Mingdu's words, the leader of the guards called 2 in the afternoon couldn't help but curse. Just as he was about to say something, Eternal Silent Dawn subordinates had already arrived near the Dark Parliament under Eternal Silent Dawn's instructions. Behind them, the shouts of the Dark City players could be heard. "Not good. The Light faction is attacking the city." Almost at the same time, Tukum also received news from others. "Not good. Dark City has been conquered by the Light faction players." News in the game spread very quickly, not to mention that the Dark City was filled with Light faction players. When 2PM received the news, the other players also received the news from various channels. F***CK. When everyone saw the news, the fear in their hearts grew. Their remaining morale immediately collapsed. Impossible! 2PM was not stupid. After receiving the news, even though 2PM was shocked, his rationality told him that this was impossible. Even if they could not sense the Light faction players sneaking in, how could they not sense the number of people in the city? Dark City was the capital and could easily accommodate millions of players. However, to conquer the Dark City, they would need at least a few skilled players. No matter how big the Dark City was, it would still be able to accommodate 2 million players. However, not only were they not crowded, they could not even sense the number of people around them. There was definitely a trap. Thinking about this, 2 p.m. quickly shouted, "Everyone, don't believe the rumors. Someone is playing tricks. Everyone, just stand to your positions." This bro was trying to use words to pull the morale back. However, the truth was often in the hands of a few people. A person who was clear-headed could not be called clear-headed. Dark City was filled with light faction players. This was a fact that everyone could see. Why should they believe his words? 2 p.m. was shocked and angry that his subordinates did not listen. He wanted to say something, but stopped himself. Bang! Suddenly, the sound of a bowstring rang out. Before 2 p.m. could react, a thick arrow had shot through his head. 2 p.m. was the boss after all. When he was here, even though everyone disobeyed his orders, they were too embarrassed to run away. Now that 2 p.m. was dead, all the players at the entrance of the Dark Council immediately became headless flies. At this moment, they heard another shout from the crowd. "Damn it, are we just going to stand here and wait for death? That's right, we're going to die anyway. Why don't we fight it out with the light faction?" Similar voices rose and fell, coming from every corner of the crowd. Fight it out. Chapter 1745. It was still a fight, but there was a huge difference between having a commander and not having a commander. If there was a commander, these guards would definitely advance and retreat in an orderly manner, and while fighting with their opponents, they would be able to protect the Dark Council. But it was already 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and this group of people were fighting on their own. The scene instantly turned into a mess. As the Holy Light City players were running around the city, the entire main city of Dark City was in chaos. Everyone was either frightened by the bluff of the Holy Light City players, or they were chasing after the Holy Light City players. Of course, no one would care about others, and no one would come to the Dark Council to help. Seeing this scene, a satisfied smile appeared on Wuji's face. He brought Qiwanjin and eternal silence through the crowd and entered the Dark Council. Compared to the chaos outside, the Dark Council was definitely very quiet. At this moment, eternal silence and Hua Xiao were already dumbfounded. "What the F***? Wuji said with a smile. "The art of war is deceitful, and you can win with extraordinary talent. Do you understand?" Awesome. Eternal silence and eternal silence gave Wuji a heartfelt thumbs up when they heard this. To be honest, the conflict between factions could not be resolved. After all, killing enemies would not only not cause the players of the opposing faction to be red-named, but they would also give many rewards. This was the essence of the game. If Eternal Silence were to do this mission himself, not to mention a mere 7,000 or 8,000 people, even 70,000 or 80,000 people would not be able to enter the Dark Council. Although it was the same 7,000 or 8,000 people, Wuji used a different method of fighting, allowing everyone to slip in effortlessly. In fact, there were not many casualties. Before this, Eternal Silence was still unconvinced that he had been tricked by Wuji once. Now, it seemed that as long as Wuji was willing, he could be tricked 10 times, and the opponent would still be able to do it easily. There was no other way. This was the difference between them. Ordinary people would not play like this, and Wuji had definitely played the strategy of fighting with fewer people to its essence. Thinking about it, it made sense. Qiwanjin only had a dozen or so people, yet they had made such a name for themselves in the game. In this world where one had to face challenges at all times, there had to be a reason for such a large guild to be convinced. Wang Yu and the rest of the group entered the Dark Conference as they wished, only to receive the notification that they had failed the mission at 2 in the afternoon. Looking at the light faction players running back and forth on the streets, 2 p.m. experienced the feeling of helplessness and helplessness. This was the tragedy of small guild. 4 large-scale quests. Not only did they not have enough manpower to guard the teleportation points and city gates, but even their own players lacked respect for their guild leader. In any case, if this place didn't want him, there would be other places to stay. What ability did a small guild leader like him have to make everyone do as he pleased? Benefits or wages? but 2 p.m. accepted his loss wholeheartedly. The reason why he had led his men to guard the Dark Conference after receiving the mission at 2 in the afternoon was because he knew that they would not be able to break through the defense if there were too few of them. But if there were too many, the players of Darkness City would not sit idly by. In the end, who would have thought that Wuji would come up with such a bluff? Not only did he fool his own men, but even the other players of Darkness City were also fooled. It could be seen that the opponent's stratagem was far superior to that of an ordinary person. The layout of the Dark Conference was exactly the same as the Holy Light Church, the only difference being that one was white and the other was black. Just like the Holy Light Church, there was a black teleportation portal right in the middle of the Dark Conference Divine Temple. Having already fought against the Son of the Holy Soul, Wang Yu and the rest were naturally familiar with the place, walking straight into the teleportation portal. Eternal Dawn and young Master Hua had also seen Reese's teleportation gate in Holy Light City. Seeing the people from the Quan Jin sect enter the teleportation gate, Eternal Dawn and Hua Xiao glanced at each other and followed closely behind. Stepping into the teleportation portal, the group appeared in the next scene. System notification: you have entered the Lost Paradise. Seeing the name of the scene, Wang Yu and the rest could not help but be speechless. This game designer was really funny. This King Broken Place had nothing to do with the garden. Unlike the bright and peaceful Garden of Eden, the Lost Paradise was filled with a murderous aura. Rather than calling it a garden, it was more like a giant workshop with a radius of a few hundred feet. Looking at the surrounding walls were made of pieces of dark metal, a true impenetrable wall. Even the ground of the Lost Paradise was paved with huge black and red iron plates. Looking down through the densely packed holes on the iron plates, one could see the molten iron rising with flames. It was obvious that this place was much more dangerous than the Garden of Eden. Other than that, the monsters in the Lost Paradise were no less than the Garden of Eden. Not far away from Wang Yu and the others, there were monsters strolling back and forth in groups of 2s and 3s. These monsters all had a pair of giant bat wings on their backs. The monster at the front of each group was burly, with the head of a bull and the body of a human. It held a giant double-edged axe in its hand. Following behind the Minotaur was a monster with a pair of goat horns and goat hooves, and it held a skeleton staff in its hand. The monster at the back was covered in green with shifty eyes, and it held a strange little crossbow in its hand. Although these monsters looked ferocious, everyone seemed to be used to them. Everyone was a veteran player, and they had seen all kinds of terrifying monsters. Compared to those terrifying monsters, these strange monsters were no different from pets. Wang Yu casually threw a detect spell at these strange monsters, and their information appeared in the party channel. Massacre Demon, LV85, Elite, Nephilim, HP, 300000 MP, 100000 skills, Destructive Slash, Hell Ram, Mad Slaughter Talent. Intimidate background introduction. Demons that descended from the underworld to the human world through a space-time rift. The Massacre clan is the most powerful warrior clan in the underworld. They are extremely strong, and not only do they have unparalleled destructive power, but ordinary swords and knives cannot harm them. Tyrant Sorrow, LV85, Elite, Nephilim, HP, 100000 MP, 200000 skills, Ring of Hell, Pandora's Box, Blood Pact of Destruction Talent. Intimidate background introduction. Demons that descended from the underworld to the human world through a space-time rift. No one has seen the mysterious Tyrant clan, because those who have seen them have died without a corpse, not even their soul. Plague Source, LV85, Elite, Nephilim, HP, 800000 MP, 500000 skills, Stealth, Bone Corroding Poison, Elusive. Chapter 1746. Oh, my God! The Chuanjin players had seen angels before, so they weren't too surprised when they saw the Massacre Demon and the Tyrant Sorrow. However, when they saw the Plague Source, they couldn't help but feel their eyelids twitch. Damn, there's even a poison monster. The poison attribute was a very disgusting attribute in Rebirth. It was even worse than the holy light, which could heal. Warlocks could be said to be the most annoying of all the classes. Not only did they have a lot of crowd control effects, but they were also proficient in using poison. Aside from the disgusting effect of losing health over time, the poison attribute could also reduce movement speed and defense. More terrifyingly, the poison effect couldn't be stacked with the healing effect. In other words, as long as the player was poisoned and lost health, healing spells wouldn't work unless they had an antidote or a dispel spell. Antidotes were usually carried by the poisoner, so they weren't easy to obtain. As for the dispel spell, it was even rarer. Even an expert priest like Wuji didn't know how to use it. Because of this, poison monsters were the monsters that players didn't want to encounter the most. After all, if they encountered a saint-type monster that could resurrect, they could still fight it a few more times until it died. However, if they encountered a poison monster, they would most likely be killed. Yes, they would be killed by a double blow to the player's mind and body. They didn't expect the Lord of the Demon Soul to be so wild. Even the monsters guarding the door were poisonous. What made them even more depressed was that these poison-type monsters could turn invisible. What the F***CK? This was simply insane. Even if he was a boss, he shouldn't be so shameless. What do we do? Open it directly? Yang Na frowned when she saw the monster's attributes. For a martial artist like Yang Na, although the poison monsters were disgusting, they weren't too difficult to deal with. No, Wuji waved his hand. These monsters are too troublesome. There's no need to fight needlessly. Old cow. At this point, Wuji pointed at the plague source and said to Wang Yu, "Go lure that rat away. Leave the rest to us." Okay. Wang Yu nodded and leaped toward the monster in front of him. Seeing that someone had jumped over, 2 exclamation marks appeared on the head of the source of plague. Then it cried out in surprise, "Kaka, I found a prey. Don't fight with me." As he spoke, the plague origin raised the crossbow in his hand and shot rapidly at Wang Yu. Shwa 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 shwa. 7 or 8 crossbow bolts shot towards Wang Yu with an oily green glow. Naturally, Wang Yu could not take this kind of poisonous thing head-on. Facing the arrow flying towards him, Wang Yu casually waved his right hand, and a one-handed sword appeared in his hand. Then, with a flick of his wrist, several sword flowers appeared. 6 degrees of plum blossom. Although this sword technique was not the most exquisite sword technique, it was the sword technique with the most technical content. It needed to rely on the flick of the wrist to draw 6 plum blossoms in the air. Each plum blossoms could block 6 directions. Not to mention the crossbow bolts. Even small hidden weapons like the hair of a cow could be accurately blocked. This move was not a secret in the Kung Fu circle. In fact, it could be said that any martial artist could use it. However, experts like Wang Yu who could draw 6 plum blossoms in an instant could be counted on one hand. Of course, the game also affected the dexterity attribute. As long as the dexterity attribute was enough, at the level of evildoers run wild, it could be easily used. Dang, 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 dang. With a series of metal-knocking sounds, before the crossbow bolts could hit Wang Yu's longsword had already struck down all the crossbow bolts. Before the plague source could continue shooting, Wang Yu leaped into the air and instantly crossed the distance of a few meters to appear in front of the plague source. His left hand formed a claw and grabbed the plague source's throat. The plague source was a small and wretched mouse. Although it was a level 80 demon, its strength attribute was not that great. After strangling the plague source's throat, Wang Yu landed on the ground at the same time. She stomped hard on the ground with both feet. Before the plague source could react, it was pushed back a few meters by Wang Yu and fell to the ground. Roar! Where did this ant come from? The sudden appearance of Wang Yu naturally alarmed the massacre demon and tyrant Sorrow. The Minotaur roared and immediately turned to attack Wang Yu's back. However, the moment Wang Yu attacked the plague source, Wuji also gave an order. The poison monster's aggro has been pulled. We'll attack the other 2. Roger. Upon receiving the order, Yang Na and Exquisite Dream, who had been ready, immediately pulled the trigger. Whoosh, whoosh. The sound of the air being cut rang out. Two crossbow bolts streaked across the air and landed on the massacred demon and tyrant Sorrow's heads. The two monsters' aggro was pulled by Yang Na and Exquisite Dream. They had no choice but to let go of Wang Yu and turn back to target the Quanjin group. So many prey. Seeing the Quanjin group, the massacred demon grinned, revealing sharp white teeth. Everyone felt their backs go numb. Meow. A cute herbivore like the Minotaur was revealing its carnivorous teeth. This visual contrast was really hard to accept. All of you die. The massacred demon roared. He retracted his double-edged axe, lowered his head, and leaned over to ram Yang Na. His heavy footsteps made a deafening sound as he stepped on the metal floor. Seeing this, Yang Na calmly grabbed Ling Long Meng with one hand and took 2 steps back. At that moment, Yin Lao Air rushed out from the side and raised his shield in front of everyone. Rumble! The man and the Minotaur crashed into each other, creating a huge explosion. Yin Lao Air was pushed back half a meter. As for the massacred demon, it lived up to its reputation as a powerful Minotaur. After being hit by Yin Lao Air, it only swayed slightly. After pausing for a moment, it grabbed the axe handle with both hands and swung it down. The huge double-edged axe came crashing down. F***CK. So vicious? Yin Lao was also a fierce man. Facing the massacred demon's axe, Yin Lao Air didn't dodge. Instead, he raised his shield diagonally upward. Duong! Another huge explosion rang out. The ear-piercing sound of metal scraping against metal made everyone's hair stand on end. Yin Lao Air's legs went numb, and he almost fell to the ground from the axe. This Mother***'s strength was a little too much. The massacred demon's axe didn't injure Yin Lao Air, so it turned its hands and swung the axe horizontally. It exerted force in its arms, trying to cut down the people around Yin Lao Air. Grandson, Yin's second brother, was quick to react. He pointed his middle finger at the massacred demon. The massacred demon's giant axe deviated and involuntarily chopped at Yin's second brother again. Focus fire. At that moment, Wuji snapped his fingers and gave the order to attack. Chapter 1747. Flash Chain Kick. Dragon Splitting Slash. Yama Killer Strike. Raging Thunder. To place one's pride, Bao San and the others jumped in front of the Massacre Fiend at Wuji's command. Their ultimate skills landed on the Massacre Fiend at the same time. Although the Massacre Fiend was a strength-type monster, it only had 3 million HP. After being hit by their ultimate skills, it instantly lost 1/3 of its HP, BZZT. However, almost at the same time, Tyrant Sorrow raised its skeleton staff, and a black lightning halo appeared around the Massacre Fiend. To place one's pride and the others, apart from the Mage Ming Du, were all melee fighters. They could not dodge in time and were hit. Bao San was fine. As a warrior, his HP and defense growth were naturally high. Although it hurt, it was not too much. To place one's pride, North Sea Fish and Sword Dao Xue, on the other hand, were vulnerable. After being hit by the lightning, the 3 of them were reduced to nothing. At this time, Tyrant Sorrow swung its skeleton staff in the air, and a black box was summoned. Creak! As soon as the lid was opened, a ball of lightning flew out of the box and smashed into Yin Lao Air's shield. Second brother Yin had a shield in his hand, so he definitely wasn't hurt. However, after the electric ball hit second brother Yin, it didn't disappear. Instead, it bounced onto Bao San's body, and Bao San's HP instantly dropped. After that, the ball of lightning bounced toward to place one's pride and the others, who were closest to Bao San. To place one's pride and the others were depressed when they saw this. Great, this F***king monster also knows how to coordinate. After all the trouble they had gone through, it would be such a shame if they died to a monster. Dao Xue vanish. North Sea Fish was an expert. Seeing this, she quickly used Earth Meld and burrowed into the ground. At the same time, she did not forget to remind Sword Dao Xue how to deal with the attack. Hearing this, Sword Dao Xue quickly activated his skill. When Vanish was used, the user would be invincible for 3 seconds. When the lightning ball crashed into Mingjian Daoshue's body, it did not deal any damage. To place one's pride, on the other hand, was much more miserable. To place one's pride, the Grandmaster of Combat class had less HP than the Assassin class and less HP than the Warrior class. To place one's pride, that was tolerable. What was intolerable was that Grandmasters of Combat were the only class that did not have any life-saving skills. Famous Sword Dao Shui could still vanish and become invincible, but to place one's pride could only rely on his iron head to resist. Just as to place one's pride was about to be killed by the Thunderball, a holy light descended from the sky and enveloped to place one's pride. Uffed! The lightning ball collided with the holy flash and silently disappeared before everyone's eyes. Wuji grabbed his staff and commanded, Blood Red, retreat. Brother Chun and second brother, control Oxhead. The rest of you, kill the wizards first. As he spoke, Wuji sent a ball of flames at the tyrant's sorrow. The flames fluttered and smashed into the tyrant's sorrow's head. A string of ellipses appeared above the tyrant's sorrow's head. Clearly, it had been muted. Mages who were silenced could not cast spells. Without their skills, mages were just moving targets. Exquisite Dream raised her hand and shot an arrow at the tyrant's sorrow. Yang Na and Mingdu attacked the tyrant's sorrow, beating it half to death. After 2 sets of skills, the tyrant's sorrow was reduced to ashes. Under Chun Xiang and Yin Lao Air's control, the massacre fiend was completely suppressed. Without the tyrant's sorrow causing trouble, the massacre fiend could not cause any more trouble. Wuji calmly healed Chuanjin and the others back to full health. Everyone rushed forward and killed the massacre fiend. At the same time, not far away, Wang Yu had already killed the plague source. Although the Nephilim monsters were ugly and powerful, they could not revive. In this aspect, they were much more reasonable than the celestial monsters. After killing the first wave of monsters, killing the second wave was a walk in the park for him. Wang Yu pulled the plague source, while the others split into 2 groups to deal with the massacre fiend and the tyrant sorrow. In just half an hour, all the monsters in the Lost Paradise had been slaughtered by the Chuanjin players. Eternal Dawn and Beijing's young Master Hua were able to enjoy a battle between top-tier experts for free. After clearing out the monsters, everyone followed the metal floor to the end of the Lost Paradise. At the end of the Lost Paradise was an extremely thick metal door. This door was 7 to 8 meters tall and 6 meters wide. It stood there in black, giving off an invisible pressure. What puzzled everyone was that this metal door had no lock or gap. It was as if it had been standing there for no reason. This again, seeing the door at the end of the road, the Chuanjin players could not help but laugh. They could not use the same trick against Saint Seiya twice. They had been tricked by the system in the Garden of Eden, so they would not fall for it so easily this time. Knock it open. Wuji stood in front of the door and gave Bao San and Yin Lao Air a look. Bao San and Yin Lao Air received the order, lowered their heads, and charged at the door from the left and right. Boom! With a loud sound, the 2 of them slammed into the door. Immediately after, mosquito coils rose above their heads. Damn it, these 2 fellows actually knocked themselves unconscious, but the door didn't budge at all. It didn't even shake. Huh? Did I open it the wrong way? Seeing that the door did not open, everyone was stunned. Wuji could not help but frown. He rubbed his chin and mumbled, the Nephilim race and the celestial race are opposites. Since brute force cannot open it, let's try magic. Okay. Hearing this, Mingdu walked to the front of the team, raised his staff with his left hand, and began to make hand seals with his right. Boom! A thunderous sound. A huge lightning bolt more than twice the usual thickness was summoned by Mingdu and heavily bombarded the iron door. The result was the same as before. The big iron door flashed, and strange inscriptions lit up. Mingdu's thunderstorm disappeared without a trace like a clay ox entering the sea. The iron door did not even make a F*King sound, not to mention being blown open. What the F*CK is going on? Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned. Even Wuji was in disbelief. According to common sense, Things like doors could either be opened with unlocking spells or force. If force did not work, one could also use magic to bomb it. No matter what, it had to be done. However, the door in front of them was not only not locked, but also not moved by force or persuasion. This was a bit of a headache. I think so. Wuji pondered and said, "This door is the same as the door in the Garden of Eden. The key to opening the door should be nearby. But there are no elves here." Mingdu looked around, his face full of doubt. The Garden of Eden was a proper garden. The paths inside were complicated, and it could hide many creatures. However, the Lost Garden was just a large hall. As far as the eye could see, aside from the monsters that had been killed by the team, there were no other creatures. Chapter 1748. Mechanism. Everyone quietened down after hearing Wuji's words. It was not strange for a place that looked like a smithing workshop to have a mechanism. Therefore, everyone hurriedly spread out and checked carefully to see if there was anything unusual. Lost Paradise was a spacious hall, and it was very easy to find something here. However, they did not find any mechanism that could be activated after searching 3 to 4 times. That's not right. Seeing that everyone had found nothing, Wuji frowned and said, "Could there be something that we didn't find?" "Damn it," Mingdu yelled. "It's not like you didn't see it. We've been searching for so long in this broken place. Are we going to look for it on the ceiling?" The ceiling." Hearing Mingdu's words, Wuji's eyes suddenly lit up. He quickly looked up, only to see darkness above his head. Wuji raised his staff and threw a holy light orb at the ceiling. The dazzling light immediately illuminated the ceiling above everyone's head. Everyone's gaze followed the holy light orb. "Damn it!" Everyone was shocked. Damn it, there was actually something on the ceiling. However, holy light orb was only a minor skill after all. It did not last long, so no one could see what was on the ceiling. Seeing that, Wuji immediately cast a holy light shield on himself. Then, he extended 2 wings from his back and flew up leisurely. Compared to holy light orb, Wuji was much brighter after activating holy light shield and wings. In the darkness, he was like a fluorescent lamp, illuminating the ceiling. At this moment, everyone could clearly see what was on the ceiling with the help of Wuji's light. On the ceiling of Lost Paradise, there were black statues. Those statues had hideous and terrifying faces. They were naked, and their standing posture was extremely strange. 1, 2, 3, 13. Wuji extended his staff and counted. There were a total of 13 statues, forming a large circle. In the middle of the circle was an altar. In the middle of the pitch-black altar was a purplish-black box that was engraved with magic runes. These are the 13 Demon Kings. As someone who came from Light Saint City, Eternal Silent Dawn knew Conviction's background story like the back of his hand. He immediately recognized the statue on the ceiling. The Light faction had the 13 Holy Disciples, while the Darkness faction had the 13 Demon Kings. These strange statues are the 13 Demon Kings. 13 Demon Kings? It seems like the Lost Paradise is indeed a place of filth. Look at these guys. Each one is uglier than the last. They actually have the nerve to let people make statues of them for people to admire. Maybe they think they're too ugly, so they hid them on the ceiling. Wuji curled his lips, his face full of disdain. Damn it, the game designers were getting more and more deceitful. Their methods of hiding things were also strange. If it wasn't for Mingdu's grumbling, who would have noticed if there was anything on the dark ceiling? Despite his disdain, Wuji's hands were not idle. He reached out to grab the box on the altar. However, the moment Wuji's hand touched the box, his hand passed through the box instead of the box. Stunned, Wuji exclaimed, "This box is a phantom." "A phantom?" Everyone was puzzled. "Where's the statue? Is it a phantom too?" "Let me see." Wuji turned around, flew under the statue, and poked it with his staff. Unsurprisingly, the staff effortlessly passed through the statue. Clearly, these statues were also phantom. Fuck! Seeing this scene, everyone was on the verge of collapsing. They had finally found the mechanism, but in the end, it was just an illusion. Was this guy messing with them? Something's wrong. Wuji frowned. There's no way a phantom would appear here for no reason. There must be something we haven't noticed. Otherwise, where did it come from? Well, Chun Xiang rubbed his chin. From a scientific perspective, it should be a projection. Tui, to place one's pride, gave Chun Xiang the middle finger before he could finish speaking. You're using science in a fantasy game? Tell me, can science summon a fireball? Haven't you seen a lighter before? Chun Xiang rolled his eyes at to place one's pride. From a scientific perspective, as long as you can grasp the elemental sequencing, it's not impossible to summon a forbidden spell. It's fine if kids don't study hard these days, but they also treat ignorance as their personality. F***CKU. These two silly dogs, one old and one young, started arguing with each other again before even finishing a sentence. However, the listener was more interested in what he said. After hearing Chun Xiang's nonsense, Wuji subconsciously looked down to see if there was anything like a projector. When he looked down, Wuji's eyes lit up again. Of course, it was definitely not a projector. It was a bit too much for a fantasy world to come up with something like this, but in the middle of the Lost Paradise, there were square platforms. These platforms were not big, and their shape was exactly the same as the pedestal of the statue on the ceiling. As the floor of the Lost Paradise was divided into pieces by small holes, no one noticed these slightly larger platforms. If not for Wuji looking down from above, it would have been difficult to notice them. After taking a look at the angle of the platform and the statue on the ceiling, and combining it with what Chun Xiang said, Wuji seemed to understand something. He folded his wings and landed in front of eternal silence. Who are the 13 demon kings? Well, eternal silence thought for a moment. Treacherous, wretched, ugly, petty, childish, snobbish, greedy, stubborn, huh? Just as eternal silence was speaking, Wang Yu suddenly laughed. Eternal silence, who are you targeting? Eternal silence was taken aback when he heard this. He saw Chuanjin's group glaring at him with dark expressions. In all honesty, Eternal Silence of Dawn had absolutely no intention of targeting anyone, but his words were all aimed at the Quanzhun sect's group of bad guys. Treacherous Wuji, wretched Chun Xiang. These were the adjectives that everyone used to mock each other. Eternal Silence's accuracy was very high, and his description was accurate. If not for Eternal Silence's pale face, Chuanjin's group would have suspected that Eternal Silence was deliberately scolding the locust. Being stared at by Chuanjin's murderous gaze, Eternal Silence panicked. He hurriedly waved his hand. I'm not targeting anyone. These records can be found in the library. Don't listen to old cow's nonsense. Wuji said indifferently. We are all upright people. Right? Are there any of the 13 demon kings like old cow? Aggressive, does that count? Eternal Silence asked carefully. Chapter 1749. That's enough. Stop talking nonsense. Seeing that Eternal Silence was about to be scared to death by Wang Yu, Wuji hurriedly stopped him. In that case, it saves me the trouble of making you guys put on an act one by one. Everyone, stand in order. As he spoke, Wuji glanced at the position on the ceiling that represented the Demon King of Deceit and then stood on the corresponding platform. Seeing this, the others also took their respective positions. Although these were not good words, with the personalities of the Chuanjin members, it was inevitable that they would spit at each other again. Mingdu, where do you think you're standing? Being ugly is your position. UF * King Bao San, you lowly bootlicker. Chick, is the stupid position yours? F * CK off, you old pervert. Looking at the Chuanjin members who almost started fighting, Eternal Silence and Beijing's young Master Hua were dumbfounded. Was this the temperament of a top-notch expert? He didn't look any different from an ordinary player. There were a total of 11 people in Chuanjin. Including Eternal Silence and Dawn, there were exactly 13 of them. After everyone stood still, a beam of light shot out from under the metal plate and shone on everyone. The 13 people's reflections were cast on the 13 statues. Boom! At the same time, a loud sound came from the magma below. A blood-colored altar rose in the middle of the circle formed by the Chuanjin members. The shape of the altar was exactly the same as the altar on the ceiling. There was also a box carved with magic runes on the altar. Creak! Before everyone could go forward, the box opened, and a lock jumped out and floated in the air. Dao Xue, go and open the lock. Seeing this, Wuji immediately gave Dao Xue the order. Dao Xue was dumbfounded. What's the use of opening this lock? It's not on the door. Is there a setting in the game that the lock must be on the door? Wuji asked. Dao Xue was speechless. He walked to the lock, took out a metal wire, and stabbed it. Patter! The lock was easily opened by Mingji and Dao Xue. Rumble! At this moment, the huge iron gate at the end of the road made a deafening noise and slowly rose up. It's finally opened. Seeing that the door was indeed opened, everyone couldn't help but feel excited. Damn it! Opening a door in this stupid game was even more difficult than fighting a boss. After all, as long as one was strong enough, the boss could be easily pushed away, but there was no clue how to open this door. Even if one had the strength, there was no way to start. Wang Yu finally understood why Old Man Hermit had asked him to bring reinforcements. Damn it. He needed 13 people to open the door. This wasn't something that could be solved just by fighting. Fortunately, Wuji had brought along the Eternal Dawn brothers. Otherwise, these guys from Chuanjin wouldn't even be able to open the door. After passing through the gate, Wang Yu's group arrived at another scenario in the Lost Paradise. Back in the Garden of Eden, the second scenario after entering the door was a temple, but the second scenario in the Lost Paradise looked like a giant prison. Just like the scene outside, everyone was still standing on the iron floor, but the magma beneath the ground had turned into blood. There were iron cages hanging in the air right in front of everyone, and each cage had a person locked inside. There were humans, heavenly wings, elves, beastmen, and even angels with wings. These people were locked in the cages and were struggling to get out. But right below the cages was a large pool, and the pool was boiling with a blood-like red liquid. Although it had been optimized, such a bloody scene still left people speechless. Two extremely ugly fellows were sitting at the innermost part of the prison, eating and drinking at a small table. These two fellows had wings on their backs and fleshy horns on their heads. One was completely red, and the other was completely green. It was extremely strange. The green monster carried a steel fork on its back, and the red monster carried a giant sickle on its back. They looked rather fierce. In the innermost part of the two monsters was a pitch-black coffin. The lid of the coffin was open, and inside the coffin lay a wrinkled, dried corpse. Like Les, the coffin was also shrouded in a black light. This is the legendary Corpse Mountain Blood Sea. The crowd frowned when they saw this. Yang Na and Ling Longmeng even turned their heads away. They were women, after all. No matter how strong they were, they couldn't withstand these disgusting things. You could say it's a pool of wine and a forest of flesh. Wuji curled his lips and pointed at the wine glasses on the table of the two monsters. Everyone followed Wuji's finger and saw that the wine in the two monsters' wine glasses was exactly the same as the liquid in the pool. Blurg. The people from the Chuanjin sect were slightly better. Chun Xiang often posted disgusting pictures in the group to train everyone's nerves. However, Eternal Silent Dawn and Beijing's young Master Hua, the two rich second-generation heirs, had never seen such a scene before. They almost puked on the spot. At this time, Wang Yu used Detect, and the attributes of the two monsters appeared in the channel. Soul-Stealing Scythe Cane, LV85, Boss, Gold, Epic, Nephilim, HP, 100000 HP, 100000 skills, Nightfall, Death Harvest, Ultimate Fear Talent. Intimidate background introduction, a terrifying demon that controls life and death. The scythe in his hand has the power to tear souls apart. He is the left and right hand of the demon soul lord Jamil. Calamity Riser, LV85, Boss, Gold, Epic, Nephilim, HP, 8000000 HP, 200000 skills, Toxic Plague, Hidden Miasma, Toxic Sting, Descent of Disaster Talent. Intimidate background introduction. In the past 10,000 years, humanity's most terrifying enemy was this dreadful plague demon. Wherever Riser went, not even a blade of grass would grow. Even the bones of living creatures would be difficult to preserve. After being subdued by the Lord of Demon Souls, Jamil, Riser disappeared without a trace. It is said that he has become Jamil's most trusted subordinate. Kakik, what fragrant human flesh! Just as Wang Yu was probing the two demons, they also noticed Wang Yu and the others at the door. Riser cackled, revealing his white teeth. Well, even though the Protoss guys were lowly and ignorant, they were only mentally damaged. These two monsters in front of them actually opened their mouths and wanted to eat people. As expected, martial God's pursuit was not unreasonable. If they were ruled by these bastards, it was fine if humans were to be treated as slaves, but they might even be treated as food. Hee hee. The other demon, Cain, laughed and said, "To be able to make it here, these people are obviously not easy to deal with. Don't be careless." "It's okay." Riser licked his black lips and said, "I like to eat the meat of the strong because their meat has more energy." Chapter 1750 F***CK Eternal Dawn and Hua Xiao subconsciously took a few steps back as they watched the two approaching bosses. Their faces were filled with fear. Of course, it wasn't because they were cowards, but because their opponents were too strong. A gold boss that was 20 levels higher than them, and it was an epic monster with a Nephilim's emblem on its back. Anyone who saw this would inevitably panic. However, when Eternal Dawn and Hua Xiao saw the expressions on the faces of Chuanjin's members, they were stunned. The group of people did not panic as they imagined. Instead, they looked relaxed as though the two terrifying bosses in front of them were just small monsters outside. It couldn't be helped. Chuanjin's members had already seen the Holy Soul's son less. He was a celestial boss who could use a celestial ultimate skill. As the saying goes, one who has seen the ocean cannot be compared to water. These two menacing small bosses might seem terrifying, but in front of a celestial boss, they were like little brothers. Seeing Cain and Riesel walking towards them, Chuanjin's members retreated behind Wang Yu in unison and looked at them with burning gazes. Hee hee. Wang Yu smiled and unhurriedly took the longbow from his back with his left hand. His right hand grabbed a huge arrow that was as thick as an arm and knocked it on the bowstring. Creak! Wang Yu exerted strength in his arms, and with a piercing sound, the bow was like a full moon. Pung! Following the explosive sound of the bowstring, the arrow turned into a ray of light and shot towards the larger target, Soul Reaper Scythe Cain. Ha ha ha! Seeing this, Cain revealed a strange, sinister smile. He waved the giant sickle in his hand and slashed at the arrow. Wang Yu's bow was called the God-slaying bow. It had a bonus attack against celestial and Nephilim monsters. Even a level 100 celestial boss, the Holy Soul's son less, could not withstand it, let alone a small demon. Before Cain's scythe could land, Wang Yu's arrow had already hit Cain's neck. Puffed. With a dull sound, the huge arrow pierced through Cain's throat and embedded itself deeply into the wall behind him. A bowl-sized hole appeared in Cain's throat. -1651432. A huge 7-digit damage number floated above Cain's head. At the same time, a golden mark appeared on Cain's head. Looking at this dazzling output, even the members of the Chuanjin sect, who had witnessed Wang Yu's arrow in the sky, were dumbfounded. After all, Wang Yu had the green Yin sword in his hand. Being able to kill Lewis in an instant was a plot kill. Everything had been properly arranged by the system, and Wang Yu's arrow just now was a real normal attack. A normal attack dealt 7-digit damage. This was simply unheard of. After all, Cain only had 10 million HP. Wouldn't this mean that he couldn't even survive 10 normal attacks from Wang Yu? The damage was just too terrifying. The people from Quanjin's sect were already in such a state. As for Eternal Silent Dawn and Hua Xiao from the capital, their worldview had completely collapsed the moment Wang Yu pierced Cain's throat with an arrow. They just stood there like statues. Wang Yu was not at all surprised by the damage of his arrow. After all, using the God-vanquishing bow to attack monsters of the demon race and god race not only increased damage, but it also increased critical hit and critical hit damage by 60%. Wang Yu's attack power was already very high. With the God-vanquishing bow and the stacked damage bonus, it was reasonable for him to be able to deal this much damage. As an epic boss, Kane's intelligence was naturally not low. After being hit by Wang Yu's arrow, Kane and Riser were also shocked. They had originally thought that Wang Yu and the others were a flock of lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Who knew that these lambs would actually show such terrifying fangs? For a moment, the two's gazes were attracted by the huge bow in Wang Yu's hands. Fear appeared on their faces. Kane pointed at Wang Yu and scolded, "You despicable human! How dare you!" Whoosh! Now that everyone had started fighting, Wang Yu did not have time to listen to the boss nonsense. While the two bosses were still in shock, Wang Yu had already knocked his second arrow. Before Kane could finish speaking, another sound pierced through the air. Puffed. Wang Yu shot an arrow into Kane's mouth, and the latter half of Kane's words were immediately shot back. The arrow flew out from the back of Kane's head and once again deeply embedded itself into the wall behind Kane. -1822456. As the huge damage number floated up, a *2 symbol appeared behind the golden mark on Kane's head. Damn, old cow really has a bad taste. With the first arrow's damage, everyone was already mentally prepared. When Wang Yu's second arrow dealt 7 digits of damage, everyone was already immune to it. However, when they saw where Wang Yu's arrow had hit, everyone subconsciously swallowed their saliva. Damn, recently, Wang Yu had been crazy. He always liked to stab his opponents' mouths with thick and long objects. Although there was no monster protection law in the game, he still could not be so cruel. Not to mention being hit. Seeing Kane get hit, everyone's hair stood on end. Fortunately, Kane was not a player. Otherwise, with his health bar, if Wang Yu shot a few arrows in his mouth, he would probably not even dare to eat with chopsticks anymore. He's still not dead after being shot through the head? This lousy game's design is not strict at all. Seeing that Kane's head had been shot through and the health bar on top of his head had not even dropped to half, Wang Yu secretly despised the system. He grabbed his quiver with his right hand, pulled out 5 arrows at once, and knocked them on the bowstring. Don't ask why the arrows were so thick. How big of a hand did Wang Yu need to be able to grab 5 arrows at once? This was the game's design. He could even grab 10 arrows with one hand. In any case, this lousy game was not strict at all. Old cow had already given up. The bow and arrow aimed at Kane again. Wang Yu exerted strength in his arms. Creak. The bow was like a full moon. Bang. With the sound of the bowstring, 5 arrows flew at Kane at the same time. Kane was shot through the head by Wang Yu's second arrow. Although he did not die, he was stunned. Before he could recover, the third wave of 5 arrows had flown over. Pooh! Almost at the same time, the 5 arrows hit Kane's limbs and heart. Even the sound of hitting was only one. -1200125. -1322456. -1122456. -1124568. -1433223. A string of blood-red numbers floated above Kane's head. Kane's remaining health bar was instantly emptied. This is not possible. Following Kane's scream, Kane's entire body turned into black smoke on the spot. Soul Reaper Kane, dead. Chapter 1751. Instant kill. 3 moves. Just 3 moves? From the moment Kane stood up to the moment he was killed, only a blink of an eye had passed. Kane and Riser did not even enter his attack range before Kane met the Dark God. This was an epic boss with 10 million HP. It was not a small monster in the beginner's village. It was shocking that he was killed in 1 move. One had to know that players who could kill players of the same level were considered top-notch experts. Using the word expert to describe a boss that was 20 levels higher than him would be belittling Wang Yu. The members of the Quan Jin sect were used to seeing Wang Yu's abnormal behavior. Although Eternal Dawn also had some understanding of Wang Yu's abnormal behavior, This instant kill of an epic boss far exceeded Eternal Dawn's expectations. Even Riser stopped in his tracks when he saw that his comrade had been killed by Wang Yu. He retreated without hesitation. What a joke. Riser's HP was lower than Kane's. Wang Yu killed Kane in 3 moves and killed him in 2. Wasn't he looking for death by staying so close to Wang Yu? Trying to run? Wang Yu saw Riser retreating and immediately took out another arrow. He knocked it and aimed at Riser. Riser saw Wang Yu's thick arrow aimed at him and was shocked. He hurriedly slashed the ground with his staff. Bang! Riser's staff slashed across the ground. The ground suddenly exploded and a cloud of green smoke rose. Riser disappeared in the smoke. Wang Yu's arrow lost its target. This situation was different from a military battle. The bow and arrow was a weapon that focused on accuracy. Without a target, the bow and arrow naturally lost its use. Riser was indeed an epic boss. While watching his companions being killed, he could also gain battle experience. He was actually able to find the weakness of Wang Yu's weapon that could instantly kill a boss in an instant. Wang Yu's brows furrowed as he raised his bow. He took out another 5 arrows and placed them on the bowstring. Draw the bow, release the string. Whoosh! The 5 arrows flew towards the green smoke in a row. The green smoke didn't cover a large area. Wang Yu's 5 arrows flew horizontally across the smoke. Riser knew that Wang Yu's arrows were powerful. Seeing Wang Yu's move, Riser, who was in the smoke, quickly crouched on the ground. Wang Yu's arrow brushed past Riser's back. Whoosh! At this moment, Riser puffed up his cheeks and blew into the green smoke. When the green smoke was blown by the wind, it quickly expanded and spread outwards. In an instant, it had spread to the front of the Chuanjian people. As soon as the green smoke touched everyone, they immediately had an additional layer of HP debuff. F***CKME. Seeing the state of their bodies, everyone's faces turned pale. Damn it, this thing is actually poisonous. As an expert in using fog, Wuji naturally knew that this was not the only effect of the smoke. Seeing that the smoke was rapidly expanding and was about to drown everyone, Wuji was slightly stunned. He immediately ordered, "Everyone, don't scatter. Quickly stand by my side." Without a target, no matter how powerful Wang Yu's bow and arrows were, the Chuanjian people didn't dare to be careless. After receiving Wuji's order, everyone quickly gathered around Wuji. After everyone stood still, Wuji waved his left hand. A pink snake crawled out from Wuji's sleeve and quickly circled around Wang Yu and the others. Then, a pink smoke rose up and blocked the green smoke in front of everyone. The pink and green formed a boundary and looked very beautiful. What is this? Seeing Wuji's maze for the first time, the Brothers of Dawn and Eternal Silence were very curious about something with a more flashy appearance. Maze, Wuji explained. Stay inside and you won't get lost. Eternal Silence was a little confused. What's the difference between us being like this and getting lost? The so-called getting lost meant losing one's target and being unable to move an inch. Now, even though Wuji had blocked off the green poison mist, everyone was still trapped by Wuji's prison circle. Other than not being poisoned and losing health, it was no different from being lost. There's a difference. Wuji waved his hand, then turned around and laughed in the distance. Yo, are all the bosses nowadays so scared? You call yourself a demon. I think you're a ghost. A coward ghost. Whoosh. Just as Wuji finished speaking, there was a sudden sound of air breaking. At the same time, a green poisonous sting flew out of the smoke and shot straight at Wuji. Clang! Just as the poisonous sting was about to hit Wuji, Yin Lao Air raised his shield in front of Wuji. The poisonous sting collided with the shield and let out an ear-piercing sound. Immediately after, the poisonous sting flashed and disappeared into Yin Lao Air's shield. System notification. Your shield has been corroded by poison. 5% damage. F***CK. Yin Lao almost burst into tears when he saw the news. Damn, these demon god monsters are really scary. This dog Riser's attack actually destroyed my equipment. Isn't this F asterisk king suicidal? The divine god shield was Lao heir's treasure. His heart trembled, and he hurriedly put the shield away. However, at this time, Wuji confirmed the direction of the target through Riser's attack. Over there, Wuji pointed in the direction of the poisonous sting and sent the coordinates to Wang Yu. Wang Yu knocked an arrow and shot over. The arrow pierced through the smoke and accurately hit Riser's body. Riser let out a scream. When Wang Yu heard the scream, he confirmed the coordinates and shot another arrow. The instant the arrow flew out, Wang Yu leaped and followed behind the arrow. Another scream. The arrow pierced through the layers of poisonous fog and hit Riser's arm. Wang Yu also followed the arrow and rushed in front of Riser. When he saw Wang Yu suddenly appear, Riser seemed to have forgotten that his arm had been hit by the arrow. He stared at Wang Yu with a face full of disbelief and said, "I'm impossible? How could you pass through my poisonous fog?" Wang Yu heard this and laughed. He pointed at the arrow in Riser's arm and said, "Of course I followed the arrow." When he heard Wang Yu's words, Riser was confused at first. Then, he revealed a terrified expression. This green poisonous fog was the same as Wuji's fog. It was an illusion. According to the system's settings, once a player entered the fog, they would be forced to lose their sense of direction. They would be spinning around in the fog and would not be able to walk out of the fog. However, this kind of illusion also had a weakness. This thing could only block people, not attacks. After Wang Yu shot the arrow, he followed behind it and naturally rushed out of the poisonous fog. Chapter 1752. Of course, Wang Yu's actions could be explained in one sentence, but it was much more mysterious when it came to controlling the arrows. Not to mention anything else, just keeping up with the speed of the arrows was something that no one would be able to do. So after hearing Wang Yu's explanation, even a big boss like Riser was shocked. As for Qianjin and the others, they didn't even have time to react. Eternal Dawn was even more shocked. "Damn, where's Niu Ge? Where did he go?" Wuji smiled faintly. "He's probably about to kill the boss by now." Eternal Dawn was at a loss. Wuji's ability to instantly kill Kane made Wuji trust Wang Yu a little too much. He was able to instantly kill Kane because Wang Yu had a godly weapon that countered him. Of course, it was a piece of cake. However, Wang Yu wasn't a professional archer after all. The god-vanquishing bow was comparable to a nuclear weapon, but its firing speed was much slower than a normal archer's weapon. Because of this, Wang Yu had to be as far away as possible when using the bow. Otherwise, it would be very awkward if he was interrupted before he could even fire an arrow. Riser was a long-range boss. If Wang Yu wanted to use the bow to deal with Riser, he had to at least be outside of Riser's attack range. However, Wang Yu had the poisonous mist behind him. It wasn't easy for him to get close to Riser. If he retreated half a meter, all of Wang Yu's efforts would be in vain. As a martial arts expert, Wang Yu's battle IQ was also very high. Naturally, he would not be unable to see this. So, Wang Yu simply put away his bow and arrow, took a big stride forward, and charged straight at Riser. Riser's reaction was extremely fast. Seeing Wang Yu rush over, Riser tapped the ground with his magic staff. The ground under Riser's feet was like a stone thrown into a lake. Green ripples spread out as Riser's staff landed on the ground. At the same time, Wang Yu felt his feet sink, and a status popped up above his head. Poison Stream Plague. Defense decreased by 60. Movement speed decreased by 80. F***CK. Looking at the status of his body, Wang Yu was depressed. This F***King boss was indeed the most disgusting poison-type boss. Not only did it reduce his defense, but it also reduced his movement speed. The reason why Wang Yu was able to kill bosses that were of a higher level since he started playing the game was because of his godly skills. As for the craft of Kung Fu, it was extremely demanding on speed. Although Wang Yu's Kung Fu could also reach the realm of fighting fast with slow speed, it also depended on how slow it was. For a boss like Riser, who was about 20 levels higher than Wang Yu, no matter how low his agility was, he would still be faster than Wang Yu. Wang Yu could rely on his own martial arts techniques to defeat a boss that was faster than Wang Yu. However, if the opponent's speed exceeded Wang Yu's by too much, no matter how skilled Wang Yu was, he would still die. This was also the reason why it was so difficult for Wang Yu to encounter agility-type bosses. Riser's agility was not low, and Wang Yu could easily deal with him at his normal speed. However, now that his movement speed was reduced by 80, it made Wang Yu feel a little awkward. Disregarding whether Riser was strong or not, he was definitely the most perceptive. When he saw Wang Yu's bow and arrow, he knew that Wang Yu's vision was blocked. He realized that Wang Yu wanted to fight him, so he immediately reduced Wang Yu's movement speed. This old thief is really smart. Hee, you're really young, kid. Seeing that Wang Yu's movement speed had decreased, Riser laughed and waved his left hand. Dozens of green thorns appeared from his wide sleeves. Then Riser raised his staff and shouted, "Go!" Those poisonous thorns instantly lined up and shot towards Wang Yu. These poisonous thorns did not only have high damage, but they could also directly damage equipment. Wang Yu did not dare to take them head-on. Seeing that the poisonous thorns were about to land on him, Wang Yu rolled on the ground and dodged the poisonous thorns. Still trying to struggle, Riser frowned when he saw this. He waved his magic staff, and bone spears fell from the sky like rain, smashing towards Wang Yu at an extremely fast speed. In fact, after a player was poisoned, their movement speed was still normal when they rolled. If it was a normal attack, Wang Yu could use his rolling technique to dodge it. However, this wave of bone spears was obviously an AoE attack. If he wanted to dodge, he had to jump out of the skill's range. At that moment, Wang Yu's movement speed had been reduced by more than 80. It would be difficult for him to jump out of the skill's range. However, Wang Yu calmly rolled again. At the same time, he pulled his hands and switched the weapon in his hands from boxing gloves to a long staff. The moment he finished rolling, Wang Yu leaped up and stabbed the long staff into the ground. It was like a pole vault. Wang Yu used the huge recoil to directly pass the bone spear rain skill range and cut in front of Riser. Damn! Riser was slightly surprised. He opened his hands and was about to float backward, but Wang Yu did not want to. Trying to run after hitting someone? That was not such a good thing. Wang Yu rolled on the ground and rolled to Riser's left side. He swung the long staff in his right hand horizontally. Bang! With a dull thud, the rod in Wang Yu's hand smashed into Riser's ankle. Ouch! Riser screamed as he was hit. His body swayed slightly, and he lost his balance. He could not help but fall backward. Wang Yu turned around and placed the long staff on the ground. He held the long staff with both hands, and his feet left the ground. With a dazzling lightning glow, he kicked upwards. Bang! Wang Yu's thunder step landed accurately on Riser's crotch. Riser was sent flying by Wang Yu's thunder step. Wang Yu pressed the long staff against the ground and followed closely behind. Before Riser landed, Wang Yu had already flown above Riser. Wang Yu's big feet descended from the sky and kicked Riser's head with a martial god kick. At the end of the day, Riser was only a long-range boss. It was fine for a cat to throw poison or fog from afar. But as for close combat, even the strongest boss in the game was no match for Wang Yu in terms of close combat techniques, let alone a mere level 80-plus small boss. Even though Wang Yu's speed was reduced by 80, Wang Yu relied on his rolling skills to move around with ease. Coupled with the long staff in Wang Yu's hand, long-distance movement was not a problem. Riser's main method of fighting was to deal damage from a distance. He could not even fight back, let alone touch the corner of Wang Yu's clothes. He was completely defenseless. Wang Yu's long staff in his hand rolled left and right, up and down. He beat Riser up and down until he could neither live nor die. Bang, 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 bang. This was a boss with over 8 million HP. Wang Yu did not hold back at all. The sound of her fists hitting flesh pierced deep into the bones. The sound of her heavy blows easily penetrated through the poison mist and reached the ears of Wuji and the others. The people from the Chuanjin sect were still fine, as they were already used to such occurrences. However, The eternal silence and light of dawn were so frightened that their faces turned pale. They could not help but ask Wuji in a panic. "Boss Wuji, what does that sound?" "Old cow is punching the boss," Wuji said in a normal tone. "Don't be nervous. The boss is going to be punched to death by him soon." Eternal silence was speechless. Damn it. Looking at Wuji's calm tone, it was as if Wang Yu was not punching Riser, but a dead dog. Who the F***CK was the boss here? Eternal silent Dawn couldn't help but feel a lingering fear. Fortunately, he had admitted defeat in time in Holy Light City. Otherwise, the one who would be beaten up wouldn't be Riser, but himself. Of course, Eternal Silence was definitely overestimating himself. Riser had more than 8 million HP to withstand Wang Yu's attacks. Eternal Silence was just a player. Wang Yu did not even need a second bang to beat him up. Wang Yu's attack was not low. No matter how thick Riser's skin was, he could not withstand Wang Yu's attacks. Under Wang Yu's attacks, Riser's HP dropped at a speed visible to the naked eye. Not long after, Riser's HP turned from yellow to red and dropped to 30. Lord of Darkness above. When the boss's HP reached 30, there was a certain chance that it would go berserk. Just as Riser's HP dropped to 30, Riser suddenly roared to the sky, "Please have mercy on your devout believer." Following Riser's prayer, the corpse in the coffin behind Riser suddenly opened its eyes. The corpse stretched its body and drilled into Riser's body. At the same time, a black light burst forth from Riser's body. Wang Yu suddenly felt a huge force coming at him, and his whole body was pushed away by the light on Riser's body. Not only was Wang Yu pushed away, but even the poisonous fog in the hall evaporated when it came into contact with the black light. Wuji and the others also reappeared in front of Wang Yu. After Wang Yu was pushed away, Riser also completed his berserk. At this time, Riser's appearance had completely changed. Originally, Riser was dressed in green warlock attire. Now, he was a handsome middle-aged man with a black cloak on his back. His body was covered in black flames, and he looked very imposing. Other than that, the HP bar on Riser's head was also full. Seeing this scene, Wang Yu and the others were a little surprised. They had seen bosses go berserk many times, but no matter how much the boss changed, it was still the same boss. Every movement of the boss could still see the shadow of the boss. However, after Riser transformed, not only did his appearance change, but his entire temperament also changed. It was as if he had become a different person. This was a little strange. "Human in front of me, did you awaken me?" Just as everyone was puzzled, Riser suddenly spoke. Even his tone had changed. The guy who had wanted to eat people as soon as he opened his mouth seemed to be a lot more civilized now. It was obvious that this guy was not Riser at all. "Awaken." Hearing the words of the strange person in front of him, Wuji was stunned for a moment. He casually threw a detect spell at the strange person. The strange person's information immediately appeared in front of everyone. Chapter 1753. Lord of Demon Souls, Jamil, LV 100, Boss, God, Legendary, HP, MP. Skills, Talents. Background introduction. Jamil was once a member of the Supreme Light God clan. He was the angel with the greatest hope of inheriting the Light God King's legacy. Unfortunately, he became a demon because he doubted the Light God King's ideals. His strength is not inferior to any god or demon. Jamil. Everyone looked at the information in front of them, and then at this amiable-looking middle-aged man. They were stunned. They didn't expect Riesel to be so wild. He actually sacrificed himself to summon the final boss. "That's right. It's me." Jamil nodded and said, "You mortals, why are you disturbing my peace?" It had to be said that Jamil's attitude was much better than Reese's. That bastard kept calling them lowly humans, which was infuriating. However, Jamil's tone was extremely gentle, which made people feel very comfortable. No one knew how to answer Jamil's question. Although everyone knew that Jamil was their quest target, they were still hesitant when they saw Jamil's attitude. It wasn't just that Jamil's words were more comfortable than Reese's. It was mainly because a boss speaking calmly to a player meant that there was a quest. If this Jamil was a quest NPC, wouldn't it be very rash for them to attack him? Of course, the people of Chuanjin were all scheming dogs, but Wang Yu, who was a noob in this game, was an honest person. When she heard Jamil's question, she directly said, "We are here to kill you." "Oh, kill me?" Jamil didn't get angry when he heard Wang Yu's words. He continued to speak in an amiable tone. "Can you give me a reason?" "A reason?" Jamil's casual question stumped Wang Yu. Logically speaking, why did Wang Yu have to kill Jamil? For the sake of the world? For the sake of humanity? This reason was too fake. Even Wang Yu wouldn't believe it. In the end, Wang Yu was just doing a quest. "You're a monster, and we're players. Do we need a reason to kill you?" After thinking for a while, Wang Yu threw out a simple and crude answer. However, Jamil did not take Wang Yu's answer seriously. He laughed and said, "What hatred is there between monsters and players? We are all creatures of this world. You humans believe in those pretentious gods, so why can't you live in peace with us demons? Could it be that there was a fundamental difference between gods and demons? Isn't the righteous god of your light faction an evil demon in our dark faction?" Jamil's words were reasonable and impassioned. His words were like pearls that rang like a bell, causing everyone to fall in a deep thought. He couldn't tell that the bosses of the dark faction all had the temperament of a philosopher. He remembered that when Wang Yu first came to Darkness City, he had discussed this with the first apostle Elantra. Indeed, Hermit had also said to Wang Yu that regardless of gods or devils, they were all jackals of the same lair. There was no difference between them. It was just that their ideals were different. Why did they have to be hostile to the devil race? That's right. Eternal Dawn broke the silence and expressionlessly said, "Wasn't Jamil a god in the past?" That's right. If we let go of the so-called light and dark factions, wouldn't this world be peaceful? Hua Xiao also muttered to himself. That's right. Jamil's eyes flashed with a crafty light when he heard this. He faintly said, "Children, you aren't wrong. The ones who are wrong are the bad people who indoctrinated you. As long as you put down the weapons in your hands, the great King of Darkness will forgive your previous actions." Yes, yes. Eternal Silent Dawn and capital cities Hua Xiao nodded and casually threw their crosses and scepters to the ground. Even the members of the Chuanjin sect dropped their weapons on the ground in a daze. Seeing everyone put down their weapons, Wang Yu was dumbfounded. What the hell was going on? Everyone was going to put down the butcher's knife and become a Buddha? What about you? Child, why don't you give me the bow in your hand and let me end this sin? At this moment, Jamil looked at Wang Yu. Give it to you? Are you dreaming? Hearing Jamil say this, not only was Wang Yu unmoved, but he also wanted to laugh. What was this retarded boss doing? Did he really think that he could brainwash me with a few words? Yeah. Seeing that not only did Wang Yu not throw his weapon away, but he even retorted, Jamil was a little surprised. What did you just say to me? He said that you were dreaming. Without waiting for Wang Yu to reply, Wuji casually picked up the scepter on the ground and said, "Fortunately, I subconsciously blessed myself with a ray of holy light when I saw your attributes. Otherwise, even I would have been bewitched by you." Bewitched? Wang Yu rubbed his chin and said, "Is he bewitching me? You didn't feel anything at all?" Seeing Wang Yu's blank expression, Wuji suddenly had a face of confusion. Bewitching was one of the best skills of the demon race. As the Lord of the Demon's Soul, Jamil was naturally proficient in this skill. Among all the professions, priests and holy knights had the highest immunity to bewitching. Even so, when faced with Jamil's bewitching, the two brothers still didn't have enough practice and fell for it. On the other hand, Wuji had to rely on the holy light to see if he was tricked by Jamil. However, Wang Yu was neither a holy knight nor a priest. He didn't even know any holy light magic, but he easily resisted Jamil's bewitching and didn't feel anything at all. This was a little strange. Not only Wuji, but even Jamil was surprised. Jamil had been summoned by Riser by sacrificing his own life. Jamil had clearly seen the scene of Wang Yu killing Kang. He knew that the bow in Wang Yu's hand was an important tool to kill him, So when Jamil woke up, he used the bewitching on Wang Yu. But while Wang Yu's companions were bewitched, Wang Yu, the main target, didn't feel anything at all. At this moment, Jamil's heart was on the verge of collapse. These little tricks are useless against me. Wang Yu smiled and said, I'm a true god slayer. Gods and demons are superior to you ordinary people, but in front of us, they are prey. I am completely immune to their power and bewitching. God slayer. Hearing Wang Yu say this, Jamil's eyes suddenly narrowed. Ordinary god slayers aren't immune to my bewitching. Just which god did you kill to be immune to my mental attack? Could it be? Speaking up to here, Jamil's eyes flashed with a hint of fear. Chapter 1754. Luke, Jamil said agitatedly. You actually killed the Divine King. How is that possible? The Divine King? Wang Yu was also surprised. As the Lord of the Demon Soul, you seem to have an inexplicable respect for the god of the Light faction. Because he is my father. As he spoke, black rays of light burst out from Jamil's back. 6 black wings spread out from his back. Unlike the wings of other demons, Jamil's wings were black in color, but in shape and size, they were exactly the same as an angel's. Hee hee. Wang Yu laughed. It seems that the gods and demons are really in cahoots. You are right, Jamil said calmly. Just as I said, since the gods and demons are the same, why don't you submit to me? With your strength, I believe that one day you will definitely surpass me. System notification. You have received the admiration of the Lord of the Demon Soul, Jamil. Do you wish to join the Dark faction? As expected of the gods, their methods were exactly the same. Jamil was actually thinking of instigating defection. I can't deny that you are right, Wang Yu said calmly. But what does that have to do with me? As he spoke, Wang Yu clicked to reject. What? Jamil's expression changed. Are you determined to go against me? No, not you. Wang Yu stretched out his index finger and waved it in front of Jamil. Including the god of light, all the gods and demons who think that they can rule over the humans. Why? Jamil was both shocked and furious. He could understand why Wang Yu wanted to fight against the powerful god and demon races by himself. Because I am a human. Speaking up to this point, Wang Yu took out the bow and arrow from his back and said, humans are born as humans. No race can be above humans and treat them as slaves. You're right. Without you guys, humans might kill each other and go extinct. However, even if humans live and die on their own, what does that have to do with you guys? No matter how high-sounding you are still invaders. Invaders cannot be whitewashed. As he spoke, Wang Yu had already taken out an arrow and placed it on the bowstring. Creak, about like a full moon. Bang! The arrow, which was as thick as an arm, shot towards Jamil with a dazzling light. Jamil had sincerely wanted to recruit Wang Yu. But not only did Wang Yu not give him face, he even took the initiative to attack him. This was too much. Jamil was so angry that he was about to explode. Of course, compared to a hothead like Les, Jamil was quite cunning. Jamil knew that the bow in Wang Yu's hand was powerful, so he would not fight Wang Yu head-on like Les. Just as Wang Yu's arrow was about to hit him, Jamil's figure flashed and disappeared before Wang Yu's eyes. Bang! Wang Yu's arrow missed and hit the wall behind Jamil. Wuji, get down. Seeing that Jamil had disappeared, Wang Yu's eyes tensed up. With a loud roar, he hurriedly turned around and pushed Wuji's shoulder. Wuji took the opportunity to climb down. Swoosh! A cold wind brushed past Wuji's back. At the same time, the air behind Wuji twisted, and Jamil's figure appeared behind Wuji. Jamir frowned slightly as his attack missed. It was obvious that Jamir was a little surprised that Wang Yu could accurately determine his range. After all, Jamil was a celestial boss, and his stealth skill was quite high. Even a celestial boss of the same level would not be able to detect Jamil's movements easily, let alone players who were dozens of levels lower than him. Wang Yu's insight was beyond Jamil's expectations. However, Jamil's hands weren't idle. After his attack missed, he turned around and swung his staff at Wang Yu's head. Wang Yu didn't panic. He grabbed the bow with his left hand and aimed the bowstring at Jamil. At the same time, he leaped back and threw an arrow at Jamil with his right hand. Whiz! Jamil's magic staff struck Wang Yu's bowstring with perfect precision, producing a slight sound. Wang Yu's god-vanquishing bow was a god-vanquishing bow. No matter how strong Jamil was, he couldn't destroy it in one blow. Moreover, Jamil had struck the bowstring. As the strongest god-vanquishing bow in the game, the bowstring's elasticity was unimaginable. Jamil's powerful swing immediately offset a large portion of the force. After being bounced by the bowstring, Wang Yu used the rebound to jump back a dozen meters. Before Wang Yu landed, the arrow was already in front of Jamil's face. In the system settings, arrows thrown by players didn't deal any damage. If it were an ordinary boss, it definitely wouldn't even look at Wang Yu's arrow. It would let the arrow land on its body. However, Jamil was a god-tier boss. He was also the arrogant demon lord. How could he allow a mere mortal to throw something at his face? Jamil raised his index and middle fingers and lightly flicked. Wang Yu's arrow was knocked away. In the time it took to block, Wang Yu had already landed on the ground. He held the bow in his left hand and the arrow in his right. Creak! Bang! The second arrow flew towards Jamil. At this moment, Wang Yu was only a dozen meters away from Jamil. Even though Wang Yu wasn't proficient in archery, the god-vanquishing bow's arrow wasn't much slower than a normal archer's. In an instant, the arrow flew in front of Jamil. Jamil was about to be shot in the head by Wang Yu's arrow. However, Jamil only moved slightly to the side, dodging Wang Yu's arrow. So fast. Seeing this, Wang Yu couldn't help but feel shocked. He hurriedly sent a message to Wuji, saying, "Hurry and wake up the others. We need help." Wang Yu had always been wary of high-speed bosses. The god-vanquishing bow's attack power was unquestionable. However, no matter how strong its attack was, it was useless if it couldn't hit its target. The 6 wings on Jamil's back weren't just for show. Wang Yu was able to easily dodge Jamil's arrow at such a close distance. It was clear that Jamil's reaction speed was high. He was worthy of his title as a god boss. While Wang Yu was shocked by Jamil's speed, Jamil's shock wasn't any less than Wang Yu's. In truth, dodging Wang Yu's arrow wasn't difficult. The reason he was startled by Wang Yu's arrow was because Wang Yu's arrow had come too suddenly. Jamil had only blocked it for a moment, and the arrow had already flown in front of him. The 2 arrows, one real and one fake, showed that Wang Yu's combat ability was far beyond his imagination. Voice of God. Chapter 1755. You bastard, do you want to die? Jamil glared at Wuji angrily when he saw that Wuji had woken up the rest of the Quan Jin team. He opened his left hand and summoned a black energy ball, shooting it straight at them. "Everyone, hide behind me! Everyone, hide behind me!" Chun Xiang reacted quickly. He raised his staff and summoned 10 evil spirits to block everyone's path. Bang! 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 As a level 100 god-tier legendary boss, Jamil's strength was unparalleled. Although Chun Xiang's evil spirits were thick and sturdy, their attributes were closely related to Chun Xiang's. Chun Xiang was a cloth-armored class. No matter how high his HP was, how much defense did he have? After taking a hit from a god-tier boss, he was instantly reduced to ashes. The evil spirits also blocked the energy balls that Jamil summoned, causing them to explode into balls of energy. Who knew that at this moment, Jamil would suddenly clench his left hand? The black energy floating in the air once again gathered into a large energy ball and flew at Wuji. Jamil's intelligence was very high. He could tell who was the most troublesome and disgusting person in the team just from the previous Goo curse. Wang Yu was strong, but that was only in terms of his own strength. As a level 100 god-ranked expert, Jamil was quite confident in his own strength. His evaluation of Wang Yu was that he would only say that Wang Yu was difficult to deal with. However, Wuji was different. This kid was a holy priest. More than half of his skills could counter dark attributes. As long as he was around, this team would be very difficult to defeat. In addition, there was also the most troublesome Wang Yu, so Jamil didn't dare to be careless. S3. As such, this last energy ball was aimed at Wuji. This large energy ball's trajectory was extremely fast. It flew in front of Wuji in the blink of an eye. It looked like Wuji was about to be killed. In the blink of an eye, Yin Lao Air raised his shield and leaped in front of Wuji. He smashed his huge shield down and activated shield wall. Duong. The shield in Yin Lao Air's hand smashed heavily into the ground. It transformed into a huge, illusory shield that protected Wuji. Bang! The energy ball smashed into Yin Lao Air's shield. The illusory shield wall was directly smashed into pieces. Yin Lao Air's block bar also decreased by a large amount. Seeing this, Yin Lao Air's heart jumped. F***CK, a shield warrior with shield wall activated, was like an impenetrable fortress. It was said that nothing could harm him. Back then, when Yin Lao Air had activated shield wall, he hadn't moved an inch despite being surrounded and attacked by hundreds of people. However, Jamil's attack had not only shattered shield wall, but also reduced a large portion of the block bar. This attack power was actually terrifying. Of course, it wasn't that the Chuanjin team wouldn't fight back. When Jamil attacked Wuji, Mingdu didn't say anything and immediately formed a hand seal. In an instant, a lightning spear condensed in his hand. The instant Yin Lao Air activated shield wall, Mingdu threw the lightning spear at Jamil. Jamil could even dodge Wang Yu's arrow. Naturally, dodging Mingdu's lightning spear was no problem. Before the lightning spear could hit Jamil, Jamil smiled calmly and casually grabbed Mingdu's lightning spear. Then, he swung it, causing the lightning spear to turn around and fly straight at Wang Yu. Wang Yu didn't hurry. He clenched his fist, and a chi wave shield appeared on his arm. Then, he swung his arm at the lightning spear. Bang! The lightning spear was casually blocked by Wang Yu, and it flew out, landing on the ground and exploding. Jamil took advantage of the moment when Wang Yu blocked the lightning spear to rush over and attack Wang Yu. However, at this moment, Jamil's feet sank, and he nearly fell to the ground. Jamil hurriedly looked down and saw a thick vine tightly wrapped around his feet. Boom! Boom! At the same time, the air behind Jamil distorted. Mingjian Daoxue and Baiming Yoyu appeared behind Jamil at the same time. The two raised their hands, and gouge landed on Jamil's head. Jamil was instantly stunned for 2 seconds. Beautiful! Seeing the tacit cooperation between Mingjian Daoxue and Wang Yu and the rest of Chuanjin couldn't help but cheer. As a god-tier boss, Jamil was very immune to crowd control. If they used gouge at the same time, Jamil would be controlled for 1 second at most. If Baiming Yoyu and Mingjian Daoxue staggered their attacks, they would be controlled for an extra second. This kind of CC skill required a high grasp of timing. It was impossible to achieve such an effect with two people working together without a certain degree of tacit understanding. 2 seconds was definitely not a long time, but in the game, it could affect the outcome of a team battle. Especially in front of an extremely fast boss like Jamil, it was not easy to make him quiet for 2 seconds. I'll kill you while you're down. Ferocious Dragon Slash. The moment Jamil was controlled, Bao San had already rushed in front of Jamil. He raised the celestial god sword in his hand and sent Jamil flying into the air with a set of ultimate skills. S3, Flash Chain Kick. Before Jamil could land, To Place One's Pride flew up and kicked Jamil's head. Jamil was forcefully stunned by the kick. Yama's Fatal Strike. Shura's Instant Hellish Strike. At this time, Mingjian Daoxue and Baiming Yu had also recovered from the skill stun. They turned around and used Dig. The two of them turned into 2 sharp rays of light, one red and one black, stabbing Jamil's body from the left and right. The dazzling light formed a conspicuous cross on Jamil's body. Jamil was pasted to the wall by everyone's attacks. The set of ultimate skills took away more than 1,000,000 HP. A trace of black HP flowed down the corner of Jamil's mouth. Of course, as a top-tier boss, Jamil had more than 100 million HP. 1,000,000 damage was only 1%. He's gone. He's gone. After dealing damage, Bao San, and a place one's pride saw the HP bar above Jamil's head. Without another word, they turned around and ran. Mingji and Dao Xue and Bai Ming Yu landed on the ground and rolled. They activated stealth and disappeared from Jamil's sight. At this time, Jamil's stun duration had also ended. Jamil definitely wasn't in a good mood after being beaten up. His face darkened, and he leaped towards Bao San and to place one's pride. Jamil was extremely fast. Even Wang Yu might not be Jamil's match in a race, let alone a clumsy warrior like Bao San. Jamil flew behind Bao San and smashed his staff towards the back of Bao San's head. Just as Bao San was about to be smashed to death, a holy light suddenly lit up and protected him. At the same time, a black circle lit up under Bao San's feet. Boom! The dark boundary drilled out of the ground from the bottom up, and Jamil slammed into it and was nailed to the ground. Old cow! Fire! Wuji turned to look at Wang Yu. At this time, Wang Yu had already knocked an arrow on his bow and released the bowstring. Bang! The huge arrow whistled through the air and flew in front of Jamil like a beam of light. Pooh! Chapter 1756. The god-slaying bow, as the name suggested, was a powerful weapon designed to counter demons and gods. The stronger the target, the more obvious the restraining effect. -5,0,0,0,0,0 With a shrill scream, Wang Yu's arrow pierced through Jamil's chest and stuck into the wall. Jamil's health bar dropped by 5%. Jamil gripped his arms in pain. Crash! Spring source dark barrier shattered. -2454, 8 damage number floated above spring source head. Skill backlash. Die. After breaking free from spring source control, Jamil roared and leaped into the air. He spread his arms, and the staff in his hand turned into a pitch-black longsword. He slashed at Wang Yu. Jamil and Les were bosses of the same level, and from the looks of it, Jamil was slightly stronger than Les. His attack was bound to be an instant kill. Wang Yu didn't dare to take it head-on. Facing Jamil's longsword, Wang Yu rolled to the side, flipping 3 meters away. Duong! Jamil's sword slammed into the ground, the blade deeply embedded into the ground. Boom! With a loud sound, Jamil's sword slashed out a huge crack in the ground. With the long sword as the center, the crack quickly spread in all directions, reaching below Wang Yu in an instant. Seeing this, Wang Yu pressed his hands against the ground and flew back another 3 meters, barely dodging the shockwave of Jamil's sword. At this moment, Jamil's long sword turned and flicked at Wang Yu. Boom! The entire iron floor was lifted up by a sword, and Jamil's other free hand spread out 5 fingers. Pa! The iron floor split into a dozen iron drills that were 2 to 3 meters long and as thick as an arm. Go! Jamil's hand pushed forward, and all the iron drills shot towards Wang Yu. Sure enough, the demon race was just like the legends. They would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. Wang Yu had shot Jameer with an arrow, and Jameer was going to turn Wang Yu into a toothpick. Glancing at the dozens of metal drills flying towards him, Wang Yu smiled. Instead of retreating, he advanced. He stomped his feet on the ground and rushed towards the metal drills. F***CK. Does the old cow want to die? Seeing this scene, everyone turned pale with fright. Could it be that Wang Yu was knocked unconscious by Jameer's attack? In this kind of situation, instead of dodging to the sides, he actually rushed forward. Was he tired of living? While everyone was still in shock, the iron stake had already flown in front of Wang Yu. Wang Yu's expression was calm. His figure flashed and instantly disappeared. At the same time, he appeared in Jamil's bosom. Flash! Toppling mountains and overturning seas. Wang Yu pushed out his palms and slapped them on Jamil's stomach. At the same time, a dazzling blue light burst out from Wang Yu's palms. Boom! A huge wave flew out from Wang Yu's palms and slammed into Jamil's stomach. Jamil was sent flying backwards. Wang Yu used the impact to jump back. He casually took out his longbow and knocked an arrow, aiming at Jamil. Jamil's martial skills were also quite good. After being sent flying by Wang Yu, Jamil somersaulted in midair and quickly recovered. With a light sound, Jamil's left hand pressed against the ground and one knee landed. Old Meng. In the blink of an eye, Wuji raised his hand and greeted Exquisite Meng. Exquisite Meng was already prepared. The moment Jamil landed, she shot an arrow. With just you. Logically speaking, Jamil was the son of God and the lord of demon souls. This guy's character was very aloof. Wang Yu was a martial arts expert and a god slayer. It was the god-slaying, demon-slaying bow that made Jamil feel apprehensive. How could an exquisite dream dare to participate in a fight between deities with a broken crossbow? Jamil glanced disdainfully at Exquisite Dream's weak arrow. He didn't even have the interest to block it. His gaze landed on Wang Yu, and he stomped on the ground with both feet, preparing to pounce on her. However, just as Jamil jumped, Exquisite Meng's arrow was like a joke. It swayed and lowered its head, shooting not far from Jamil's feet. Ding! Jamil felt his entire body shake. He was nailed in midair, unable to move. Bang! At this time, Wang Yu's arrow came flying again. This time, it was aimed at Jamil's chest. Jamil subconsciously grabbed Wang Yu's arrow with both hands. Dong! A huge force slammed into Jamil's body, sending him flying and crashing into the wall. Uff! Although Jamil didn't lose as much health as the previous arrow, he still spat out a mouthful of black blood. Huh! Jamil, who had coughed up blood, chuckled. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and revealed an appreciative smile. Then, he calmly said, "No wonder you mortals could come all the way to me. Looks like you do have some ability." After a pause, Jamil continued, "Since that's the case, I should return the favor. Out of respect for the strong, I plan to let you see what I can do. You don't need to respect us. Let's just fight." At this time, Mingdu didn't forget to be playful. Oomph. Jamil ignored Mingdu's nonsense. He snorted and opened his right hand. The black longsword in his hand turned into a ray of black light and entered his body. Bang! After absorbing the longsword, Jamil's arms immediately swelled up. His loose robe was torn to shreds, revealing his bulging muscles. Seeing this scene, Wang Yu and Wuji looked at each other and nodded at the same time. Second transformation. When fighting a boss, besides relying on strength and equipment, the most important thing was experience. Although it was Wang Yu's first time fighting a boss, Wang Yu had fought with Rice before. He knew that this stage of the boss had 2 transformations. If he didn't use the 2 transformations, no fatal attack would be effective. The reason why Wang Yu didn't use the Violet Sun Sword was because Jamil hadn't used his second transformation. There was only one Violet Sun Sword. If Jamil used it before transforming, it would be very embarrassing if the boss didn't die from the arrow. Seeing that Jamil had activated his transformation, Wang Yu also silently took out the Violet Sun Sword from his bag. However, just as Wang Yu was about to shoot Jamil to death with one arrow, Jamil suddenly made a grabbing motion in mid-air. Crack, crack! A series of ear-piercing sounds rang out. The chains above the cages hanging in the air were torn apart. Plop, plop! The broken cages, along with the people in them, all fell into the blood pool below. Roar! Chapter 1757. Although the Nephilim monsters looked ferocious and horrifying, it was not difficult to tell that they still had the appearance of J-Boy in the past. Look, small. Looking at the monsters before them, then at the pool of blood on the ground, everyone felt a chill run down their spines. What the F***CK, this pool of blood was so terrifying. Even a living Protoss could be reduced to such a state, let alone a human or an orc. If it were a player, they might end up in a state that was neither human nor ghost. Ha! While everyone was still in shock, Jamil's laughter came from behind the Nephilim monsters. You guys only know that this is a paradise, but you definitely don't know that this place has another name, the land of demonization. Jamil said proudly, any living creature, be it gods, demons, or elves, will fall into the Nephilim race once they're contaminated by the pool water of the land of demonization. You want to kill me? Defeat these monsters first. As he spoke, Jamil spread his arms. All the Nephilim monsters were like puppets under a PC control, immediately lining up in a row and protecting Jamil behind them. It was obvious that although Jamil had been sacrificed by Riser and had absorbed Riser's memories, this grandson was essentially the same as Reese. Les even knew to use Holy Light Y to block Wang Yu's attacks after the second transformation. Jamil, on the other hand, summoned a group of rotten fish to their deaths. Wang Yu would not indulge such a person. Wang Yu let out a cold snort, and a colorful light burst forth from her body. Dragon subduing palm, burning flame steps, wrath of Gale. His inner breath surged. Activate the fourth transformation. With the 4 buffs, his attributes multiplied. Wang Yu naturally placed the purple Y sword on the bowstring and exerted strength in his arms. Creak. Godslayer bow was fully drawn. Release. Sky's arrow. Bang. The purple Y sword was enveloped in purplish-red flames as it slashed at Jamil. Jamil could clearly feel the destructive power contained within the purple Y sword from a dozen meters away. He could not help but feel shocked and immediately put his arms together. Crash! Under Jamil's command, all the demons lined up in front of Jamil in an attempt to resist Wang Yu's attack. However, even a God-tier boss ultimate skill couldn't withstand this arrow, so how could a group of small fries withstand it? Chi! When the purple Y sword landed on the demonic tribe monsters, they were like ice cubes falling into a steel furnace. They did not even make a sound before they were vaporized into a cloud of black smoke by the high temperature. With the black smoke, the purple Y sword landed squarely on Jameer's chest. Boom! The purple Y sword exploded, forming an energy vortex. No! Impossible! Jamil screamed as his body was distorted by the powerful energy vortex and disappeared. Boom! Soon, only his head was left on the ground. At the same time, everyone received a system notification. Player Iron Ox has led a team to successfully kill the Lord of Demon Souls, Jamil. Dark Faction Reputation, 200. Dark Faction Honor, 1,000. Everyone can kill him. Eternal Dawn and Capital City's young Master Hua received the quest completion notification at the same time Jamil was killed by an S attack. The two brothers' quest was to maintain the balance between the factions. The most direct way to maintain the balance was to kill Jamil. Although Jamil was killed by Wang Yu, Eternal Silence and Dawn were also in Wang Yu's team. They could be considered as helpers, so when Jamil was killed, their quest was also completed. When it came to quests, one had to use their brains. The reason why Wuji brought the two of them was because Wuji saw this point. It did not matter if the two of them were there or not. Instead of making an enemy and making things difficult for Wang Yu, it was better to make a friend. Moreover, if they did not bring the two of them, the door would not have opened, and they would not have been able to enter the land of demonization. He died just like that. However, seeing that the quest was completed, Eternal Silence and Dawn were not as happy as they had imagined. Instead, they were shocked. Not everyone had seen the world. Jamil was a level 100 celestial boss. His strength was far beyond the imagination of ordinary players. Yet, such a fearsome boss had been killed with a single arrow. Normal players would find it hard to accept. Not only Eternal Silence and Dawn, but even the people from Xuanzhen were shocked. Unlike Eternal Silence and Dawn, the people from Xuanzhen were shocked that Jamil had died so peacefully. Before Les died, the last thing he did was unleash a godly skill to widen everyone's horizons. Jamil, on the other hand, as the Lord of the Demon Soul, had died a little too casually. It was like a joke. If it weren't for the fact that this grandson's head had been automatically wrapped up in the system announcement, everyone would have suspected that Jamil was faking his death. S3. After all, with the character of the game designer of Rebirth, it was a basic C to make such a shameless setting. However, there were always gains and losses. Although Jamil did not let everyone see his god-tier skill, his head had been accidentally wrapped and he had dropped a lot of items. Looking at the shiny loot that Jamil had left on the ground, The people from Chuanjin were drooling. This was the loot of a god-tier boss. Moreover, it was a first kill. It might even drop a god-tier equipment. Of course, although everyone was excited, no one went forward to pick up the equipment. Instead, they looked at Wang Yu with eager eyes. It cannot be helped. Wang Yu had contributed the most to killing Jamil. It was the rule to let the person who contributed the most to pick up the equipment. Even if they had a good relationship, they still had to follow the rules. Wang Yu had played the game for a long time. Of course, he knew this. Seeing that everyone was looking at him, Wang Yu did not stand on ceremony. He quickly walked to the place where Jamil had died and picked up all the items on the ground. Jamil's head. Quest item, there was no need to think about it. Wang Yu casually put it away. Next up was the pile of equipment and skills that Jamil had dropped. After all, Jamil was only a quest boss. Coming out for a stroll was equivalent to giving players a free kill. Therefore, the drop rate of this type of boss was completely different from non-quest bosses. Even though it was the first kill of a god-tier boss, Jamil did not drop a god-tier equipment like everyone expected. The equipment that he dropped was very ordinary. Wang Yu sent the attributes of the equipment that Jamil had dropped to the party channel one by one. Everyone who saw it wanted to curse. Damn, Wang Yu had dropped 4 pieces of equipment in a row. In the end, 3 of them were silver grade and 1 was gold grade. It was simply unbearable. Chapter 1758. Huh? What's this? Just as everyone was giving Jamil the finger, Wang Yu took out a strange statue. The statue was only the size of a palm. From its shape, it looked like a suit of armor. The armor was completely gray and inconspicuous. Wang Yu frowned and cast a detect spell on it. The armor's attributes appeared before Wang Yu's eyes. Strange statue, unidentified, unidentified. Seeing the words unidentified, Wang Yu couldn't help but be shocked. In Rebirth, good items weren't necessarily unidentified, but their attributes weren't too bad. For a boss like Jamil to leave behind an unidentified item, it was clearly not an ordinary item. Who has an appraisal scroll? Wang Yu turned his head and asked. I have one. Wuji threw a scroll to Wang Yu. Wang Yu slapped the scroll on the statue. Whoosh! A ray of black light lit up, and the gray camouflage on the statue slowly peeled off under the light, revealing its true appearance. The armor was black and glossy. It looked very thick and heavy. The surface of the armor was engraved with layers of strange magic runes. Moreover, there were 2 flags on the back of the armor that looked like wings. Sky Demon Armor. Mold Precious Item Description. The armor, the Demon's Soul Lord, Jamil. It was damaged during the Great War of the Gods and Demons 10,000 years ago and has fallen into a deep sleep. If it can be reforged with the Titan clan's forging technique, it will be able to shine again. Divine Tool Mold. When Wang Yu displayed the Sky Demon Armor's attributes, everyone's saliva almost flowed out of their mouths. Equipment blueprints in Rebirth were divided into 2 types. One was the blueprint, and the other was the mold. Blueprints, as the name implied, were the blueprints. Blacksmiths could use the blueprints to create 2 pieces of equipment and then assemble them. As for the quality of the equipment, it depended on the player's craftsmanship and craftsmanship. The higher the craftsmanship, the smaller the tolerance of the parts produced. The equipment would also be more precise and of higher quality. Molds were blueprints that were superior to blueprints. This was because the mold was the main body of the equipment. Due to some external reasons, it had been sealed by the system, so there was no such thing as precision or tolerance. In layman's terms, a mold was a sealed original, while a blueprint was based on the original design. One was the main body, while the other was a replica. The difference was obvious. Therefore, when a piece of equipment was created using a mold, it could be restored to its original attributes. Under normal circumstances, this was called awakening. The only downside was that ordinary blacksmiths couldn't create it. Players had to follow the mold's instructions and find a specific NPC to awaken the mold into equipment. After completing this quest with Wang Yu, everyone had a new understanding of equipment. Although epic and legendary equipment were both celestial equipment, It was not difficult to see from the Angel of Eden that epic equipment was actually the standard equipment of ordinary gods. On the other hand, legendary equipment was equipment that had been used by celestial bosses, so it was naturally of a higher level. The Sky Demon armor was the armor of the Demon Soul Lord, Jamil. It was obviously a legendary equipment mold. Armor was a big piece, especially for warriors and knights. The role of the armor was no less than the weapon in their hands. Other people were fine with it, as they were just envious of the godly equipment. However, Bao San, Yin Lao Air, and young Master Hua the capital had naked possessiveness in their eyes. I'll look really cool in this equipment. Xingzhu will also return to my side, Bao San muttered as he rubbed his chin and looked at Wang Yu expectantly. Piss off. Wuji slapped Bao San away and said angrily, How many times have I told you? Bootlickers don't have a good ending. You're a weapon warrior. Why do you need such a good armor? There's no future in a weapon warrior. I want to upgrade to a shield warrior. Bao San clenched his fists in excitement. Piss off. You're really shameless, Wuji. Everyone pointed their middle fingers at Bao San. A piece of equipment was enough to make Bao San become a shield warrior. He had no integrity at all. I'm a defensive class. Seeing that everyone was looking down on Bao San, Hua Xiao came over and suggested, I'll roll with second brother. Oh. Wuji raised his eyebrows and said, How much contribution do you have? How dare you roll with such thick skin? I can buy it. Hua Xiao was indeed a rich second generation. He had already prepared an excuse and spoke with confidence. Most rich people wouldn't dare to say something like buying a legendary equipment. After all, he was a tycoon who spent money to buy a hidden class. Brother Hua Xiao, Wang Yu tried to persuade him. I'm not doubting whether you have money or not. Don't you think it's a bit awkward for a Templar to wear the Sky Demon armor? Hua Xiao was speechless after hearing Wang Yu's words. Then, an extremely disappointed expression appeared on his face. Wang Yu was right. A Templar was a Templar because of their high faith in the God of Light. They were the true lackeys of the God of Light. For the God of Light's lackeys to wear the equipment of the God of Darkness, this wasn't a problem of faith, it was a problem of intelligence. Did they really think that the system god was an idiot? There were only 3 frontline classes in the team. Bao San was a weapon warrior and didn't have much use in armor. Hua Xiao couldn't wear it either. In the end, the mold for the Sky Demon armor was thrown to Yin Lao Air by Wang Yu. Yin Lao Air was naturally not an ignorant person. After getting the mold, he casually sent a large red packet of 120,000 in the team channel. Even though they didn't get the legendary equipment, everyone was happy to get 10,000 gold coins. After cleaning up the battlefield, Wang Yu's group walked out of the Dark Parliament. The Darkness City was still in chaos. Every camp had people who would fish in troubled waters and loot the burning house. With the Light Faction's players doing this, it naturally attracted some people who liked to stab others in the back. Everyone took advantage of the chaos to take revenge. In the end, the Light Faction's players directly retreated after Wang Yu's group entered the Dark Parliament. The Dark Faction's disgraceful behavior was displayed in the open, sneak attacking others from behind while they were fighting. In the end, the target of the fight ran away, and they saw their own people's knives as soon as they turned their heads. That scene was very lively. It was originally a battle where the Dark Dogs chased after the Light Pigs to protect the dignity of the camp, but it instantly turned into a farce. It was just a game. Who wouldn't have a body full of hostility? Dogs biting each other caused a storm in the city once again. The Darkness City players were busy fighting, and the sinful Chuanjin's group took advantage of the chaos to leave the Darkness City. Chapter 1759. The Divine Battlefield was located at the border between the Light Faction and the Dark Faction. It was a boundless wasteland. A long time ago, Quan Zhun and the others had come to the Divine Battlefield. They had even encountered the Burning Legion here. However, the Divine Battlefield was filled with the wraiths of the dead. These wraiths were monsters above level 60. Back then, the players' levels had been relatively low. Although the monster drop rate in the Divine Battlefield was quite good, there were very few players there. Now that the players' levels and equipment had matured, the divine battlefield, which had a relatively high drop rate, had become the main training ground for players. The main city that entered the divine battlefield from the light faction was called Nepha's City. In contrast, the main city that entered the divine battlefield from the dark faction was called the Demon Fortress. According to the backstory, the decisive battle between the light faction and the dark faction ended with the dark faction's defeat. The Nephilim army retreated here and established the Demon Fortress. The Demon Fortress had originally been a tall mountain. The Nephilim army had carved out a city within the mountain. It was a massive cavern city. Similar to Sin City, the Demon Fortress was a main city with no laws or regulations. The Demon Fortress was filled with ferocious red players. However, the city guards turned a blind eye to them. In any case, as long as these red players did not rebel, the guards would not care about them. Quan Jun and the others were also lawless players. They treated the Demon Fortress as if they had returned home. What a great place! Seeing the city filled with red names, everyone felt an itch in their hearts. This was especially true for Mingdu. He was already rubbing his palms together, ready to kill. Red names had a relatively high drop rate. Wandering around in front of Mingdu was like a walking piece of meat. Don't mess around. Wuji hurriedly stopped him. We're here to do a quest. Don't cause trouble. I know. Mingdu chuckled. I'm not the kind of person who doesn't care about the big picture. As long as they don't provoke us, I won't take the initiative to attack. Like hell, I'll believe you. Wuji curled his lips. Is this why you activated the special effects on your equipment? Hurry up and turn off the special effects. Put away your weapon. Mingdu smiled helplessly and put the staff into his bag. In this kind of lawless land with good and bad people mixed together, strolling on the streets with the equipment special effect was undoubtedly telling others, I'm asking for it. However, none of the Chuanjin members were low-key. They had been with Yu Huicheng for so long, and they had never deliberately turned off the special effects of their equipment, especially Wang Yu, who was a noob in the game. He did not care about such things at all. His entire body was covered in legendary equipment, be it the boxing gloves in his hands or the longbow on his back. Although he did not deliberately turn on the special effects, even the default lighting effects of the system were dazzling. Any one of these fellows was already very eye-catching, let alone a dozen of them walking together. This was the evil Demon Fortress, and almost all of the Dark Camp's people with bad characters were here. When Xuanjin's people just entered the city, they were targeted. Boss, there's a fat sheep at our door. Just as Wuji was reprimanding Mingdu, a stealthy assassin on the stairs diagonally above the Chuanjin group sent out a message. Oh, how fat? The assassin quickly received a reply. Very fat, the assassin said confidently. A Grandmaster combat with at least 2 premium pieces of equipment. There's also a spellcaster with a premium staff. As an expert in robbing, this assassin had a very sharp eye. For what you said, it seems like there's more than one person. There's one. 9 men and 2 women, the assassin replied again. They're now heading toward the east gate. It seems like they're going to the battlefield of gods and demons. Tell our brothers to get ready. The evil Demon Fortress was a cave main city after all, and its scale was slightly smaller than an ordinary main city. Soon, Wang Yu and his group arrived at the exit of the evil Demon Fortress. As it was a main city carved out of a mountain, the evil Demon Fortress only had 2 city gates. The west gate was connected to the Dark Camp, while the east gate was connected to the battlefield of gods and demons. When Wang Yu and his group arrived at the exit of the evil Demon Fortress, they saw a few dozen people blocking the entrance. Seeing this situation, Wuji could not help but frown. They were all veteran players, and they understood what was going on when they saw the situation. The battlefield of gods and demons was the best place to train and hunt for treasures. As one of the entrances to the battlefield of gods and demons in the Dark Camp, it was not unusual for the evil Demon Fortress to collect tolls. These people were clearly doing this business by blocking the entrance. Hey, you guys! Seeing Wang Yu and his group walking over from afar, one of the warriors in crimson armor pointed his sword at them and shouted, Are we leaving the city? None of your business. None of these people in Xuanjin had a good temper. They had played the game for so long, but they had never met anyone who dared to speak to them so arrogantly. Hearing the warrior's words, Mingdu immediately rolled his eyes, then raised his hand to condense magic. "Don't cause trouble." Wuji glared at Mingdu, and Mingdu reluctantly withdrew his magic. At that moment, Wuji had already walked to the side of the red-armored warrior with a smile. "That's right, we're going to the battlefield of gods and demons." "Well said, well said." Seeing that someone was giving him money, the red-armored warrior did not care about Mingdu's attitude. Instead, he said excitedly, "The toll is 50 gold coins. I'll give you a discount of 500 gold coins for the 11 of you." Although 500 gold coins was not a lot to Chuanjin, it was definitely not a small sum. If converted to RMB, it would be close to $1,000. How much would it cost to drive through a toll station? This brat clearly saw that Wang Yu and his group did not look like locals, so he deliberately overcharged them. However, they were here to do a mission with Wang Yu. Based on the principle that it was better to avoid trouble, Wuji did not want to cause trouble in such a place filled with scum. Therefore, when he heard that the toll was 500 gold coins, Wuji did not say anything. Instead, he happily took out a money bag and handed it over. Seeing Wuji pay so readily, the red-armored warrior was obviously a little surprised. At the same time, he secretly regretted it. If he knew that this grandson in front of him was so rich, he would have asked for 1,000 gold coins. "Can we go now?" Seeing the red-armored warrior accept the money bag with a dumbfounded expression, Wuji asked with a smile. Hearing this, the red-armored warrior came to his senses and hurriedly stepped aside. "Please go ahead." "Many thanks." Wuji cupped his fists at the red-armored warrior, then waved at the Chuanjin people. The group walked out of the city gate, minding their own business. Wait. However, they had only taken a few steps when a rough voice suddenly came from behind them. Chapter 1760. Swoosh. As soon as he said that, the red-armored warrior and the others who had been guarding the gate immediately rearranged their formation and stood in front of the gate. Everyone from Chuanjin was stunned and immediately stopped in their tracks. They turned around and looked in the direction of the voice. At that moment, they saw a bald man dressed in dark red armor and holding a giant axe in his hand hurrying over with a group of people. "Hee, you guys can't leave yet." After arriving beside everyone from Chuanjin, the bald man grinned and led his people to stand in front of Wang Yu. It was true that Wang Yu had a gentle temperament, but that did not mean that he would not fight back when scolded or beaten. On the contrary, Wang Yu was a reasonable martial artist and never lacked the courage to fight back. Once he met someone unreasonable, Wang Yu would definitely be the first to attack. Seeing that the bald man was not letting him go, Wang Yu frowned, and his face instantly darkened. Everyone from Chuanjin who knew Wang Yu knew that Wang Yu was unhappy and wanted to kill someone. After all, with Wang Yu's temper, he could not tolerate the red-armored warrior and the others blocking the road to collect fees. It was only because he cared about Wuji's feelings that Wang Yu chose to compromise. Now, he and his group had paid the money, but they were still not letting him go. Wasn't this courting death? Of course, Wuji also knew Wang Yu's temper. Before Wang Yu could get angry, Wuji hurriedly asked the bald man, "Who are you? You dare to come to the demon fortress? Don't you know who I am?" The bald man pointed at the dark red armor on his body and the flame emblem on his chest. "I am the guild leader of the Red Lotus Hell Guild, Hellboy." "Oh, I don't know you." Wuji shook his head and asked the people from Chuanjin beside him, "Have you guys heard of me?" "No." The people of Chuanjin also said, "What kind of dog is he? Is he worthy of being known by us?" Obviously, Chuanjin and the others were very unhappy with Hellboy's behavior. None of these guys were easy to deal with. After playing the game for so long, even the bosses of 9 provinces, 5 lakes, and 4 seas had to be polite to Chuanjin and the others. Who did this Hellboy think he was? How dare he yell at them? You guys sure have guts. How dare you talk to me like that? Hearing the words of Chuanjin, Hellboy almost exploded in anger. For Hellboy to be able to carry the flag in a place like the demon fortress filled with scum, he could be considered a character. He was also one of the most ruthless people in the Dark faction. Hellboy thought that these guys in front of him would be surprised when they heard his name and then obediently hand over the equipment to ensure their safety. In the end, not only did these bastards say they didn't know him, but they also mocked him. Hellboy suddenly felt like his old face was being ruthlessly rubbed against the ground. If it weren't for the fact that these guys in front of him didn't look like weaklings and that the other players of Red Lotus Hell were still on the way, Hellboy would have already attacked them. Can't help it. That's just how we are. Wuji replied indifferently to Hellboy, then said, "We've already paid the toll." What do you mean by this? Wuji was a veteran in the online gaming circle. There was nothing he hadn't seen before. The 500 gold coins toll just now was already more than enough. Now, there was someone blocking the way. Could it be that the demon fortress collected tolls in waves? Hellboy sneered and said, "The money you pay belongs to ordinary people. You guys aren't ordinary people." "Why?" Wuji asked, puzzled. "Look at the equipment you're wearing and the weapons in your hands. Your value is different. Of course, the price is different too." "Oh." Wuji raised his eyebrows and said, "Then how much do you want?" "Well," Hellboy rubbed his chin and said, "If you want to pass through here, you'll have to pay at least 1,000 gold coins per person." As soon as Hellboy said this, the Chuanjin players pulled out their weapons without hesitation. 1,000 gold coins per person meant $10,000 per person. Charging $10,000 to pass through the city gate? Was this the Snow Country? Clearly, Hellboy wasn't doing this for the fee. This bastard was just looking for a fight. "What? You want to fight?" Seeing the expressions of the Chuanjin players, Hellboy smiled mischievously and glanced behind Chuanjin's group. "You guys can try." Before Hellbaron could finish his sentence, the players of Hell Lotus surrounded Quan Jun's team from all directions. In the blink of an eye, they had Quan Jun's team surrounded. There were 3 layers inside and 3 layers outside. There were at least a few hundred of them. Each of them looked fierce, and their equipment shone brightly. One look, and one could tell that they were all elite experts. Let's talk things over." Seeing this scene, Wuji chuckled and broke the deadlock. Then he pulled out a big bag of money and said, "It's just 10,000 gold coins. Why do you have to resort to violence? As long as we leave the city, I'll definitely hand over the money." As the saying went, a strong dragon could not suppress a snake in its territory. This demon fortress was different from other cities. The people of Chuanjin could fly. Even if other cities blocked the gates, they couldn't stop the people of Chuanjin. However, the demon fortress was a huge cavern city. Even if the people of Chuanjin could fly, it wouldn't be of much use. Could they break through the mountain walls and fly out? Everyone was here to complete a quest. It wasn't easy to get to the last part of the quest. Wuji obviously didn't want to complicate matters. 10,000 gold coins wasn't a large sum to the people of Chuanjin. It was worth it if they could buy some peace and quiet. 10,000 gold coins was not a small sum for ordinary players. Seeing Wuji casually take out so much money, Hellboy couldn't help but be surprised. Hellboy was here to cause trouble, so he obviously wouldn't let the Chuanjin players off so easily. "I didn't expect you to be a bunch of rich people." Hellboy sneered again. "Then these gold coins definitely won't be enough." "Is that so?" Wuji narrowed his eyes, stuffed the money bag back into his bag, and said, "Then how much do you think it will cost this time?" Speaking up to this point, Wuji turned his head and asked the people of Chuanjin, "Is 100,000 enough?" "No, it's not enough." Seeing Wuji's expression, the people of Chuanjin all chimed in. "At least 200,000. 500,000. At this time, Wang Yu also spoke up. "I don't care if it's anyone else, but I don't like this person. I'll listen to you." Wuji snapped his fingers, turned around, and asked Hellboy with a smile, "Did you hear me clearly?" Hearing Wang Yu's words, Hellboy was a little dumbfounded. Hellboy had been collecting tolls here for some time, but this was the first time someone took the initiative to increase the price, and by so much. At this time, Wuji said again, "If you heard me clearly, hurry up and take it out. Otherwise, I'll force you to take it out." Hellboy was dumbfounded again. "You mean I'm giving you this 500,000? What do you think? Don't tell me we're giving it to you?" Wuji raised his eyebrows and asked. F***CK. You're messing with me. I think you guys don't want to live anymore. Hearing this, Hellboy was stunned. He immediately flew into a rage and swung his giant axe at Wuji. Chapter 1761. Facing Hellboy's attack, Wuji chuckled and calmly took half a step back. At the same time, Wang Yu moved to the side to where Wuji was standing. He raised his left hand and grabbed Hellboy's axe handle with ferocious tiger strike, while his right hand struck Hellboy's wrist. Slap! Without missing a beat, he struck Hellboy's pulse. Hellboy's hand involuntarily loosened, and the weapon in his hand was directly snatched away by Wang Yu. At the same time, Wang Yu's right foot stepped forward, and with a dazzling flash of lightning, he firmly kicked Hellboy's lower abdomen. Wang Yu's thunder stomp was so powerful that even a boss would lose a layer of skin after taking a single kick, let alone a mere player. If Hellboy was a shield warrior, he might still have a chance of surviving, but this guy was a weapon warrior. With one kick from Wang Yu, Hellboy instantly turned into a flash of white light. The players from Crimson Lotus Hell were dumbfounded by this scene. They never imagined that this group of people, who were surrounded like dogs, would dare to fight back in this situation. What was even more terrifying was that this guy dressed like a fighter actually killed Hellboy with a single kick. As a weapon warrior, Hellboy didn't have much health. However, as the boss of the Red Lotus Hell, Hellboy's equipment was unparalleled in the entire Demon Fortress, let alone the entire guild. Yet, this top-notch equipment was instantly killed by a fighter known for his weak attacks. This was simply unimaginable. What was even more unbelievable was that Hellboy's weapon was snatched away by this fighter. To be able to snatch equipment from a player, any player in the game would know how terrifying this behavior was. Under everyone's horrified gaze, Wang Yu glanced at Hellboy's giant axe and said in surprise, "It's a dark gold weapon. You scum, you're quite successful in robbing people." Saying that, Wang Yu casually threw the axe into his backpack and looked around at the surrounding Red Lotus Hell players. The Red Lotus Hell players who were swept by Wang Yu's gaze were shocked. They subconsciously tightened their grip on their weapons, afraid that Wang Yu would snatch them away. At this time, Hellboy had also respawned at the resurrection point. Looking at his surroundings, then looking at his empty hands, Hellboy finally exploded. He immediately ordered in the guild channel, "Kill them all. Don't leave a single one alive." Through the guild channel, the Red Lotus Hell players could feel the murderous intent in Hellboy's tone. To be able to stand out in a place like the Demon Fortress, where scum gathered, the players of Hell Lotus were definitely not easy to deal with. As the guild leader of Hell Lotus, Hellboy was extremely conceited. Ever since the start of the game, Hellboy had led his underlings to carve out a path for themselves in this lawless city. In this land, he was the only one who bullied others. No one had ever dared to object to the Hellfire Lotus. Now, not only had Hellboy been killed, but his weapon had also been snatched away. How could Hellboy tolerate this? At Shurfeng's command, the Hell Lotus players brandished their weapons and attacked Quan Jun's encirclement. Retreat. At this time, Wuji also issued an order to Chuanjin's group. Wuji took out an illusionary snake and threw it on the ground. Puff! A cloud of pink smoke rose and enveloped the Chuanjin players. At the same time, Wang Yu swung Chun Xiang with his left hand and Wuji with his right. He threw both of them into the crowd, and then kicked Yin Lao Air's shield with his martial god. Yin Lao Air borrowed the force of Wang Yu's kick to retreat into the crowd. Seeing this, the other members of Chuanjin also used their magic and ran into the crowd. Ming Jian Shui and Bai Ming Yu used stealth and swift movement. Yang Na, an exquisite dream, ran and dodged. Bao San used triple slash. To place one's pride, used collapsing fist. And Ming Du and Wang Yu used flash. Before the Red Lotus Hell players' attacks could land, Chuanjin's group had already squeezed into the crowd. Rumble. Magic arrows rained down from the sky, bombarding the pink smoke. In the crowd, Wuji lightly hooked his hand and summoned the illusionary snake back. The pink smoke disappeared, and the encirclement was empty. They died, just like that? Why didn't they drop anything? The Red Lotus Hell players had a lot of experience in killing and looting. Seeing a wave of attacks kill a dozen well-equipped experts, they were also a little surprised. After all, Chuanjin's group had a shield warrior. Logically speaking, a wave of attacks should be able to instantly kill the other players. A shield warrior with thick skin and flesh shouldn't be so easily taken down. They're here. Just when everyone was puzzled, the players at the entrance of the demon fortress suddenly screamed. Hearing the scream, everyone hurriedly turned around. However, at this moment, the players blocking the entrance felt something hot under their feet. Boom! A sea of flames rose in response. The players at the entrance didn't know what was going on, but they were instantly engulfed by the flames. The white light of death and the color of the flames intertwined, creating a magnificent visual effect. The crowded city gate was also directly cleared by this spell. Under the cover of the flames, Chuanjin swaggered out of the demon fortress. Before leaving, they didn't forget to leave behind some harsh words. Tell your guild leader, Infernal Spirit, to prepare 500,000 gold coins. We'll be back soon. It's Hellboy. The Red Lotus Hell players knew that their guild leader hated people who couldn't remember his name the most, so they hurriedly corrected him. Got it. Your guild leader is called Cerberus. F***CKU. Chase after them. Don't let them get away. With their guild leader being humiliated, the Red Lotus Hell players also lost face. They roared and chased after them. However, just as they reached the entrance, a mud wall rose from the ground and sealed the gate of the demon fortress. Chuanjin and the others left without looking back. Where are they? Where are they? Where those be asterisk stars? Just as Chuanjin's group forced their way out, Hellboy rushed from the resurrection point to the city gate. Seeing that there was no trace of Chuanjin, he looked around and asked. Seeing their boss's expression, the Red Lotus Hell players didn't know how to answer. Kill them? The resurrection point wouldn't lie. Run away? A few hundred people couldn't even surround a dozen people. What the hell were they doing? Hellboy wasn't a fool. Seeing the expression on his subordinates' faces, Hellboy's heart trembled. He hurriedly looked at the gate. Seeing the mess at the gate, Hellboy instantly understood what was going on. Hellboy was so angry that he felt like his head was about to explode. Boss, don't be anxious. Seeing that Hellboy was about to curse, the red-armored warrior hurriedly came over and said, "They can't get away." Chapter 1762. The sorcerer in that group killed a lot of our people, Red Devil said. We have his name. As long as we lock onto the sorcerer's coordinates, they won't be able to escape. Oh, Hellboy was delighted. What's the name of the sorcerer? I think he's called Mingdu, Red Devil said after thinking for a while. Mingdu? Hellboy was a little dazed when he heard this name. He felt like he had heard this name before. But this was not important. No matter who it was in the demon fortress, the Red Lotus of Hell had the final say. Anyone who dared to go against the Red Lotus of Hell would only die. Thinking of this, Hellboy nodded. Let's do as you say. Who has clairvoyance? Let him check the coordinates. I do. Red Devil immediately replied. From the coordinates, they are heading to the center of the battlefield of gods and demons. Center of the battlefield of gods and demons. Hellboy was surprised. What are they doing there? The monsters in the battlefield of gods and demons were very strong. Although players at this stage had the ability to kill the monsters in the battlefield of gods and demons, very few people went to the center. After all, the battlefield of gods and demons was very big, and everyone had limited supplies for leveling up. If they went too deep, they might not be able to return. Who knows? Maybe they don't know the way, Red Devil said. Hellboy snorted. Who cares what they're doing? We can't let them escape. Otherwise, we won't be able to survive in the demon fortress. In fact, not only did Hellboy not know where Wang Yu wanted to go, even Wang Yu himself did not know where he was going. According to the initial mission flow, Wang Yu only needed to take the heads of Les and Jamil and bring them back. But after killing Jamil, Wang Yu's mission changed. The change was also inexplicable. It just gave Wang Yu a coordinate and instructed Wang Yu to place the two heads at the designated coordinates. As for what was at the coordinates, Wang Yu and the others were also confused. The battlefield of gods and demons was an ancient battlefield of the great war of gods and demons. Dead souls of gods and demons were everywhere. These monsters' resentment soared to the heavens. Moreover, because they were of the resentment attribute, ordinary physical attacks were useless against them. They were very difficult to deal with. Thanks to the strength of Chuanjin's group, they managed to arrive at the coordinates designated by Wang Yu without any mishap. Unlike the monster zones along the way, although the coordinates were in the center of the battlefield of gods and demons, there was not a single monster within dozens of meters. Instead, there were many statues standing tall. Although these statues were ancient and broken, covered in a thick layer of moss, the expressions on their faces were vivid and lifelike. Some had sinister expressions, some had a pure and holy aura. From afar, they looked no different from real people. These statues formed a circle, and in the center of the circle was a circular altar. The altar was more than 3 meters tall. Half of it was black, and the other half was white. A white stone pillar stood on the black half, and a black stone pillar stood on the white half. There were 2 steps, one black and one white, spiraling down from the left and right sides of the altar. It looked rather strange. One had to know that the background setting of the game Rebirth had always been black and white, especially for sacred things like altars. They were either pure black or pure white. This was the first time everyone had seen an altar with such a clear distinction between black and white. Everyone walked around the altar, and Wuji's face suddenly revealed a puzzled expression. "What's wrong, Wuji? Have you seen this thing before?" Seeing Wuji's expression, Wang Yu asked curiously. "Not only have I seen it before." Wuji pointed at the black and white altar and said, "Don't you think it looks familiar? It looks very familiar." After being reminded by Wuji, Wang Yu and the others also felt that the appearance of the altar looked very familiar, but they couldn't remember where they had seen it. "Don't stand below and look left and right," Wuji said. "You have to look from above." "Look from above?" Hearing Wuji's words, the people of the Quanzhan sect flew up one after another. When they looked down from above, all of them were stunned. The shape of the altar was more than familiar. Everyone basically saw it every day. Standing below, the altar was a high platform with a clear distinction between black and white. However, looking down from above, it was a yin-yang fish that was exactly the same as the guild emblem on Chuanjin's chest. The 2 stone pillars, one black and one white, were the eyes of the fish. There was a groove directly above the 2 stone pillars, and the size of the groove was almost the same as an adult's head. How is this possible? Looking at the yin-yang fish altar that appeared on the battlefield, everyone from Chuanjin was a little dazed. Rebirth was an authentic Western fantasy game. How could a game with a Western fantasy background have such an Eastern symbol? It would have been fine if there were only 1 or 2 Easter eggs. After all, the game designers were all Chinese. It was understandable for them to add 1 or 2 unimportant Easter eggs. However, the appearance of an yin-yang fish altar was completely out of place. Where is this? The battlefield of the gods and demons. The intersection of the 2 major factions of light and darkness would be one of the most important scenes in the later stages of the game. What was the difference between setting up a yin-yang fish altar here and a Western fantasy boss speaking classical Chinese? For a moment, everyone from Chuanjin didn't know how to express their feelings. This change of scenery was too sudden. Why not? However, just as everyone's worldview collapsed, Wuji pointed at the yin-yang fish on Wang Yu's chest and said, "This Eastern factor has always existed. It's just that we didn't pay attention to it. We made this guild emblem ourselves. What does it have to do with the game?" To place one's pride retorted, "Oh, are you sure that Old Cow's badge is the same as yours?" Wuji asked back. To place one's pride heard this, and suddenly remembered that although Wang Yu's badge was the same style as the yin-yang fish on Chuanjin's chest, Wang Yu's was a professional badge. Not to mention the light effects. The system's craftsmanship was many times better than the player's handmade ones. However, after playing together for a long time, They slowly neglected the small detail of Wang Yu's badge being different from theirs. Now, do you still think it's strange to have a yin-yang fish here? Wu Ji asked again. Everyone from Chuanjin was speechless. The Grandmaster of Combat was one of the 7 major professions. As the hidden profession of the Grandmaster of Combat, Wang Yu's profession could be said to be the top of the 7 major hero professions. Professions were the most representative of the game genre. The hero professions were even more of a factor in the game's background. The top of the 7 major hero professions, the martial artist, was an Eastern element. Therefore, the appearance of a yin-yang fish altar here was completely understandable. Chapter 1763. Who cares what kind of game it is? Just do what the system tells you to do, and that's it. In the end, Wang Yu's game was simple and crude. He took out 2 heads from his bag, flew forward, and pressed the heads into the grooves on the stone pillar. Rumble. The moment Wang Yu placed the 2 heads into the grooves, the entire altar started shaking. For justice, for freedom, deafening whistles and murderous cries came from the sky above the god and demon battlefield. The black and white stone pillars slowly sank as the altar shook. When the entire stone pillars sank into the altar, 2 rays of light, one black and one white, shot into the sky, dispersing the dark clouds above the god and demon battlefield and spreading in all directions. Sunlight pierced through the clouds and shone on the god and demon battlefield. All the vengeful spirits on the god and demon battlefield disappeared under the sunlight. System notice: you have completed the quest, Martial God's Responsibility. Neutral faction reputation plus 5,000. You are currently respected by 10,000 people. Neutral faction reputation plus 50,000. EXP plus, you have obtained the title Martial God Successor. Martial God Successor, title: all pugilist skills cooldown reduced by 15%, all pugilist skills damage increased by 15%, all classes weapon mastery increased by 5% required class. Martial Scholar Bound. Iron Ox 2 golden lights shone on Wang Yu's body. The large amount of EXP allowed Wang Yu to reach level 70. At the same time, a system announcement sounded in the game. Announcement: the seal that had been sealed for 1,000 years has been broken. The sleeping god and demon battlefield has been awakened. The ancient battlefield that had been accumulating for thousands of years has once again sounded the call to assemble. Is it fate or coincidence? The god and demon battlefield has once again been opened by Destiny's Child. Walala, along with the system announcement, the stone statues around the altar started shaking. Their gray outer shells fell off bit by bit. The sleeping angels and demons were awakened by Wang Yu because the god and demon battlefield had opened. At the sight of this scene, everyone from Chuanjin subconsciously leaned back to back. Chun Xiang said nervously, "I have an ominous feeling." As soon as Chun Xiang finished speaking, the awakened statues around the altar all looked at the altar. When they saw the 2 heads next to Chuanjin's group, their eyes instantly turned into monstrous killing intent. Lord Les, Sir Jamil. The monsters looked at the head on the pillar, then at Wang Yu, and shouted angrily, "Martial God! It's you again, you detestable mortal. Unforgivable!" With that said, the demons and angels beneath the altar spread their wings and leaped toward the altar in unison. Old Cowrun. Seeing this, Wu Ji placed a holy light shield on Wang Yu's head. Wang Yu responded by flashing out of the encirclement and rushing towards the demon fort. Walalala. The hatred of these resurrected statues was all on Wang Yu. Seeing Wang Yu jump out of the encirclement, all the angels and demons flapped their wings and changed directions to chase after him. Although he did not know what Martial God had done to the gods and demons back then, Wang Yu was sure that he was being targeted by both races at the same time. He had no choice. He had killed Les and Jamil, and the title of Martial God Successor hung on his head. He could not wash it clean even if he wanted to. F***CK. Should we go and help? The Chuanjin members on the altar were dumbfounded. To be honest, in their eyes, Wang Yu was actually a very good-tempered and loyal friend. They did not know why, but this person was like sh*t, attracting flies wherever he went. In the past, he was only chased by players, but now he was being chased by NPCs. What was even more unbelievable was that the angels and demons, who had been enemies for generations, had actually joined forces because of Wang Yu. What did this mean? Did the peace between the gods and demons depend on this kid? Help my ass. Looking at Wang Yu and the monsters that filled the sky behind him, Wuji was startled. It's fine to go up and take a look, but forget about helping. What a joke. These resurrected statues were all question marks with a detection skill. They were at least level 80 online. Moreover, since they were sealed in the center of the battlefield of gods and demons, their strength was definitely not low. Even Wang Yu had to run for his life. So what could the others do to help? How is it? How far is it? We should be able to catch up. Just as Wang Yu activated the battlefield of gods and demons, Hellboy had also caught up with hundreds of people. Seeing the system announcement, Hellboy looked anxious. It was not difficult to see that the commotion just now was caused by Wang Yu and the others. Hellboy was afraid that Wang Yu and the others would turn around and flee after completing their mission. On the other side of the battlefield of gods and demons was the City of Sinners. It was nominally the territory of the neutral faction, but the Army of Light was stationed there. Most of the players there were from the Light faction. Hellboy was also a local tyrant, so he naturally knew that a strong dragon could not suppress a local tyrant. We're almost there. The Red Devil hurriedly checked the coordinates and said, "They haven't moved at all." "Hey, what's that?" Before the Red Devil could finish speaking, Hellboy's sudden voice interrupted him. The Red Devil heard the voice and looked up. In the distant sky, a dark mass was flying towards him at a speed visible to the naked eye. It's a demon and an angel. They're flying over here together. At this time, the archers in the team had already seen what was flying in the sky and could not help but become restless. A demon and an angel flying together? Isn't this nonsense? When Hellboy heard the archer's words, he could not help but twitch his mouth. Demons and angels were not rare in the game world, but it was a little unbelievable that demons and angels were flying in the sky together. It's true. They seem to be chasing someone. Wang Yu's speed after activating Palace Purge was very fast, and the flying speed of those angels and demons was not slow either. In just a few words, Wang Yu had rushed into the field of vision of the Red Lotus Hell players with the pursuers behind him. The archers with better eyesight also saw Wang Yu running at the front. Chasing someone? Hellboy hurriedly covered his eyes with his hands and looked forward. Soon, a figure rushed into Hellboy's eyes. That burly figure, the shiny boxing gloves in his hands, the longbow on his back. It looked so familiar. Wasn't this the kid who snatched his weapon and killed him once? F***CK. As the saying goes, when enemies meet, their eyes turn red. Seeing that the person rushing over was Wang Yu, Hellboy immediately ordered the players behind him. "Everyone, stop that kid. Don't let him get away." Whoosh. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.